The coatroom smelled like wet wool and somebody's vanilla perfume. There were 30 or 40 coats in there, all belonging to people who had a better seat at my son's wedding than I did. Laurel stood beside a folding chair as if she had personally arranged an upgrade. On the shelf above it, a monitor showed the chapel altar from a crooked angle. The screen was small enough that Owen's face would be about the size of my thumbnail. "You can watch the vows from here," she said. I waited for her to smile. Laurel had a dry sense of humor when she forgot to manage it, and for one ridiculous second I thought this was a joke. A cruel one, perhaps, but still a joke. Then I noticed my name card on the counter beside a bowl of brass coat check tags. "Where is my seat?" "It's a capacity issue." She kept her voice gentle. Laurel could say almost anything in the tone nurses use when removing tape from skin. Aunt Susan came after all. "My mother is overwhelmed." "What does your aunt have to do with my seat?" From the chapel came the bright, wandering notes of a violinist warming up. Laurel glanced toward the door. "Owen said you'd understand." That was the moment the room changed. Not when I saw the folding chair, not when I saw my name card discarded beside the coat check tags. It was when I understood that my son already knew. 6 hours earlier, I had been standing in my kitchen eating peanut butter from a spoon because I was too nervous for breakfast. My sister, Margaret, sat at the table in a satin robe, curling ribbon around a wedding gift with the blade of my good scissors. "You're going to ruin those," I told her. "They're scissors, Diane. Their entire purpose is to encounter resistance. The little ones in the drawer are for ribbon. The little ones in the drawer couldn't cut fog." Marjorie and I had shared a mother, a childhood bedroom, and almost no opinions. She was 3 years younger than I was and had spent 61 years regarding preparedness as a mild psychiatric condition. Her wedding outfit hung from the pantry door in a dry cleaning bag. Mine was already in the car, along with backup stockings, stain remover, safety pins, breath mints, 2 umbrellas, and an emergency sewing kit large enough to repair a parachute. My phone buzzed against the counter. Laurel. Marjorie looked at the ceiling. "The bride has arisen." I answered. "Good morning, honey. Diane, I'm so sorry." It was 7:12 a.m. When a bride began with "I'm so sorry" at 7:12, it usually meant I was about to acquire a job. Laurel's florist had delivered the ceremony arrangements to the reception room and the reception arrangements to the chapel. The difference, as Laurel explained it, was obvious. The ceremony urns contained white roses and trailing greenery. The reception pieces contained white roses and trailing greenery, but lower. "I can fix that," I said. Across the kitchen, Marjorie silently mouthed, "Of course you can." "The florist isn't answering," Laurel said. "I don't know who else I can trust." There it was. Laurel's favorite way of asking for help was to make refusal sound like a character defect. "I'll leave now. You're saving me." I doubt the wedding was going to collapse under the weight of tall flowers. She gave a quick, startled laugh. The real one she usually hid behind a prettier version. "Tell Owen I was calm. I'll lie beautifully." After we hung up, Marjorie put down the scissors. "You know they hired a wedding coordinator. Celeste is handling the reception room. I'm just switching flowers." "Who is Celeste?" "The wedding coordinator." "Then perhaps Celeste should coordinate the wedding." I rinsed my spoon. "It'll take 10 minutes. Everything you do for that family takes 10 minutes. You've given them 18 months in 10-minute pieces." I turned toward her, and she held up both hands. "I'm not fighting with you on Owen's wedding day. I'm simply observing that you are wearing house slippers and volunteering for floral logistics." I looked down. She was right about the slippers. The drive to Bellwether Inn took 40 minutes. It sat beyond the edge of town, where the road narrowed between old stone walls and horse farms with white fences. Rain had passed through before dawn, leaving the trees dark and shining. Every few miles, sunlight broke across a field so dramatically that it looked staged. My husband, Paul, would have said they overdid the lighting. I could hear him saying it. That was the trouble with losing someone after 31 years. They kept making comments in your head, and sometimes they were funnier than the living people around you. Paul had been gone 7 years. The grief was no longer a wave that knocked me down without warning. It had become weather, always somewhere in the region, changing what I carried with me. His cufflinks were in my purse. They were plain silver ovals, scratched on one edge because Paul used to drop everything on the dresser rather than place it there. I had considered getting them polished. Then I decided Owen should receive them looking like his father had actually worn them. Bellwether Inn had once been a private country house, though the brochure used the word estate with great enthusiasm. A young valet in a green raincoat opened my car door and asked if I was with the bridal party. I'm the groom's mother. He checked a clipboard. Diane Mercer? That's me. We have you down for the 11:30 arrival. I'm early. He looked at the clock on his phone. By 3 hours. I'm aware of how time works. He blinked and I felt guilty. The boy, young man. I corrected myself. Everyone involved in the story was an adult, had not misplaced the centerpieces. I'm helping with a flower issue, I added. His expression softened with recognition. Apparently every wedding had a flower issue, and women like me arrived early to solve it. Inside, the inn smelled of lemon polish, coffee, and lilies. Staff members crossed the foyer carrying trays and garment bags. Someone had placed a handwritten sign on an easel. Welcome to the wedding of Laurel Bennett and Owen Mercer. Beneath their names was the date, which I had been writing on checks and reservation forms for so long it did not look like a date anymore. Celeste, the coordinator, found me near the chapel carrying a headset, 2 phones, and an expression of dignified emergency. The flowers are wrong, I said. They're not wrong. They're transposed. I was told wrong. The bride is not yet in a vocabulary frame of mind. Celeste was about my age, silver-haired, and built like she could direct aircraft with one eyebrow. I liked her immediately. Together we shifted 6 tall arrangements from the reception room to the chapel and carried 12 low ones in the opposite direction. The chapel was paneled in honey-colored wood, with narrow arched windows and 6 rows of chairs on each side. It was more intimate than the photographs suggested. 36 seats, all close enough to hear a nervous breath at the altar. My place card was in the first row, Diane Mercer. Beside it stood an empty chair with a small spray of greenery and a framed photograph of Paul laughing in a fishing hat. Laurel had chosen the picture. I had expected the formal portrait from his obituary, but she said Owen should be able to look out and see his father happy. For all the ways Laurel could make me feel like an appliance with a pulse, she could also do something so thoughtful that I would spend weeks ashamed of resenting her. I touched one finger to the edge of the frame. "You okay?" Celeste asked. "Yes." That answer usually means no at weddings and funerals. It's my son's wedding. I'm allowed to be several things. She nodded. Just don't be several things on the flowers. We finally have them right. At 9, the inn began filling with voices. Laurel's family arrived in coordinated bursts, each person carrying something they believed only they could be trusted to hold. Her mother, Evelyn, swept through the foyer in cream silk, asking 3 separate people whether anyone had seen the garment steamer. Evelyn was a beautiful woman in the manner of expensive hotels. Everything matched. Nothing invited you to stay too long. When she saw me, she pressed both hands around mine. "Diane, thank heaven. You're here. I've been here since the flowers were taller." She looked past me toward the chapel. "Has Susan called you?" "I don't know a Susan." "My sister." "I've met her once. At the engagement dinner. The one who left before dessert? She had a migraine. She said she hated the restaurant. That was the migraine speaking." Evelyn released my hands and checked her phone. Her lipstick was perfect, but one false eyelash had begun lifting at the outer corner. The small flaw made her seem suddenly human. "Is she coming?" I asked. She hasn't answered me in 9 months, so naturally this is the morning I've decided I can't breathe without knowing. I did not know the full history between Evelyn and Susan. I knew there had been an argument after their father's funeral involving a watch, a eulogy, and a sentence Susan could not take back. Laurel had invited her aunt at Evelyn's insistence, then spent months pretending it did not matter whether Susan accepted. "Today will still be good if she doesn't come?" I said. Evelyn stared at her phone. People always say that when they already have everyone they need. Before I could decide whether that was grief or accusation, Owen called my name from the staircase. He was coming down in shirt sleeves, his tie hanging loose around his neck. At 35, he had Paul's height and my habit of tightening his mouth when he was trying not to show emotion. His hair was damp. He had cut himself shaving just below his jaw. For a moment, I did not see the adult man who managed a staff, paid a mortgage, and was about to make vows. I saw the college freshman pretending he wasn't homesick. I saw the 11-year-old who wore one red sock and one blue sock to school because his father had done the laundry. I saw every version at once, which was unfair to him and nearly unbearable for me. "You're early," he said. "So I've been told. You fixed the flowers?" "Celeste fixed them. I provided upper body strength." He hugged me. Not a polite wedding hug, but the old kind. Both arms tight around my shoulders. I closed my eyes for 1 second. "You all right?" I asked. "Ask me after I'm legally attached. Laurel will love that phrasing." He smiled, then noticed the chapel behind me. His gaze landed on Paul's photograph. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I have something for you." We found an empty breakfast room away from the voices. Rainwater silvered the windows. I took the small navy box from my purse and handed it to him. Owen opened it without speaking. He ran his thumb over the scratched edge of one cufflink. I thought these were lost. I put them away. "You put everything away. Someone had to. Your father believed drawers were where objects went to become rumors." Owen laughed, but his eyes filled. He looked down quickly. Under the cufflinks was the folded note I had written the night before. He started to open it. "Read that later," I said. "Is it going to make me cry?" "Almost certainly." "Then I'll read it after the photographs. Laurel already warned me about facial redness." I reached up and straightened the collar he had not finished fastening. "Your father would be proud of you. I wish he were here." "So do I." He closed the box and held it against his palm. A knock sounded and Laurel's cousin leaned into the room. "Owen, they need you upstairs. Something about the officiant." "Of course they do." He kissed my cheek and headed for the door. Before leaving, he turned back. "Mom?" "Yes?" "Thank you. For all of it." It was such a simple thing. It warmed me so completely that, hours later, I would sit in a coatroom replaying it and wonder whether gratitude had ever meant what I thought it did. At the time, I only smiled. "Go get married," I told him. He left with his father's cufflinks in his hand. From the foyer came a sudden commotion. The front door opening, Evelyn gasping, Laurel calling for someone to wait. Then I heard a woman say, "I know I'm late. I wasn't sure I was coming until I was already here." A few minutes later, the first row of the chapel would no longer have enough seats, and everyone would look for the person most likely to surrender hers. The woman in the foyer had Evelyn's cheekbones and none of her polish. Susan Bennett wore a navy pantsuit under a rain-spotted trench coat, and her gray hair looked as though she had dried it by driving with the windows open. She held a gift bag in one hand and car keys in the other. Evelyn stared at her. "You came." Susan shifted the gift bag. "That's generally what it means when someone is standing in front of you. You didn't answer." "I know. I called you 11 times. I know that too." They had the frozen posture of women who wanted to embrace, but could still remember why they had stopped. Laurel stood halfway down the stairs with one hand covering her mouth. When Susan saw her, the dry expression fell away. "Oh, honey." Laurel crossed the foyer so quickly that she almost missed the final step. She wrapped both arms around her aunt. Susan dropped her keys and they skittered under a table. No one moved to retrieve them. Evelyn watched the embrace, blinking hard. When Susan reached for her, Evelyn resisted for perhaps half a second. Then they folded together in the middle of the foyer, 3 women crying into one another's carefully chosen clothes. It was genuinely moving. That is important. Susan had not arrived twisting a mustache. Evelyn's relief was not fake. Laurel was not calculating seating arrangements while she sobbed into her aunt's shoulder. In that moment, I was happy for them. Marjorie appeared beside me, fully dressed now in deep blue, her ribbon-damaged gift under one arm. Who's that? The prodigal aunt. Do we kill a calf or just adjust the catering? Be nice. I am being nice. I brought a gift, despite being forced to use defective scissors. Susan finally pulled away from Laurel and wiped under her eyes. I'm sorry. I know this is rude. I don't expect you to have a place for me. Of course we have a place, Evelyn said. It came instantly. Not a promise after checking, not a question directed to Celeste, a declaration. Laurel's face changed so slightly that I might have missed it if I had not spent 18 months studying her changes of expression. Her eyes went first to her mother, then toward the chapel. Celeste came through carrying a roll of double-sided tape. Laurel intercepted her before she reached us. Marjorie followed my gaze. That looks administrative. Weddings are mostly administration in uncomfortable shoes. You'd know. I ignored that and went upstairs to change. The room assigned to the groom's family was at the far end of the second floor. It had floral wallpaper, 2 antique mirrors, and 1 electrical outlet located behind a wardrobe the size of a farm vehicle. 4 of Owen's cousins were taking turns charging their phones from an extension cord stretched across the carpet. I changed into a dark green dress Paul had once said made me look dangerously competent. I had bought it for an anniversary dinner and never worn it after he died. It fit differently now, looser at the shoulders, but Marjorie zipped it without comment. She fastened my pearl earrings and met my eyes in the mirror. You look beautiful. You sound surprised. I'm trying sincerity. Don't spoil it. Her fingers rested briefly on my shoulder. We both looked at my reflection. I had expected to feel Paul's absence most strongly in the chapel. Instead, it found me there, with my sister fastening pearls he had given me, and no one waiting downstairs to tell me I had taken too long. Marjorie seemed to know. He would have complained about the drive, she said, and the valet, and the tiny soap in the bathroom. He liked tiny soap. He stole tiny soap. That isn't the same thing. I laughed, which was what she wanted. When we returned downstairs, the inn had settled into ceremony quiet. Guests lowered their voices without being asked. The string quartet had begun in the music room, and every few minutes a door opened to release a soft rush of violin. Susan stood near the guest book, speaking with Evelyn. Someone had found her a corsage. She looked grateful and miserable, as if the flowers had confirmed that her impulsive arrival required consequences. I saw Celeste near the chapel and went to her. Did you find another chair? Her mouth tightened. There isn't room for another chair. Then Susan can stand at the back. The venue manager won't allow anyone standing in the aisle. What about one of the musicians? They're in the alcove and don't count against the seated capacity. What about the photographer? Same. There has to be a way. Diane. Celeste's tone was kind but firm. Laurel is handling it. That should have worried me more than it did. A photographer pulled me away for pictures with Owen. Then Evelyn needed help fastening her corsage because her hands were shaking. One of the groomsmen had misplaced the card with the ring order, although there were only 2 rings, and none of us understood how much order could be required. By the time I looked at the chapel again, several guests were already seated. My name card was still in the first row. Susan stood outside the doors. She saw me looking and approached, keeping her voice low. I told them I can stay in the bar until the reception. You came to see the wedding. I came because I was tired of being angry. I didn't think about furniture. There'll be a place. Evelyn says there will. We both looked toward Evelyn, who was whispering to Laurel beside the staircase. Laurel's jaw was set. Evelyn touched her arm and Laurel pulled away. Susan sighed. I may have timed my personal growth poorly. Most personal growth has terrible timing. She smiled. You're Owen's mother. I am. He seems decent. He is. I said it automatically, but not falsely. Owen was decent. He remembered the names of waiters. He called older relatives without being reminded. When Paul was dying, Owen drove 3 hours every Friday after work and slept in a vinyl chair beside him. Decent people do not become indecent in one decision. They become frightened, tired, selfish, eager to please. They tell themselves the person they hurt will understand. Laurel found me 10 minutes before the processional lineup. Her face was composed again. Diane, can I borrow you? Celeste said everyone should be in position. This will only take a second. She led me away from the chapel. I thought perhaps she needed help with her dress or wanted me to speak to Evelyn. Instead, she opened the coatroom door. The folding chair was positioned between a rack of dark coats and a wooden counter. On the shelf, the monitor showed a live view of the chapel altar. Someone had placed a bottle of water beside it, as if hydration were the detail that might make the arrangement humane. You can watch the vows from here, Laurel said. I saw my name card beside the brass tags. Where is my seat? It's a capacity issue. A capacity issue usually means the last person to arrive doesn't get a chair. My mother needs Susan beside her. If Susan feels pushed away now, we may lose her again. And you think putting her in my seat will prevent that? It's not about your seat. It has my name on it. Laurel exhaled through her nose. I knew this would become symbolic. It became symbolic when you put the groom's mother in a coatroom. Her eyes flashed. For the first time that day, the smoothness dropped. This is exactly what I was afraid of. What is? That no matter what happens, your feelings become the main event. I stared at her. She softened her voice again, which made it worse. You've been part of everything, Diane. Every appointment, every dinner, every decision. Susan has nothing. Can you give my mother these 15 minutes? I was invited to the wedding. You'll see the wedding. On a security monitor, it's the ceremony feed. Does changing the noun help? She looked toward the corridor. Owen said you'd understand. My chest tightened. Where is he? He's lining up. Get him. Diane, please. Get my son. Laurel left. I stayed by the folding chair, afraid that if I stepped into the corridor, I might do exactly what she had accused me of doing. Guests were settling into the chapel. I heard Marjorie laugh at something, unaware that my place card was lying 5 feet from me beside a bowl of numbered tags. Owen appeared in the doorway less than a minute later. He wore Paul's cufflinks. That was the first thing I noticed. The second was that he did not look surprised. Mom, you knew. His gaze moved to Laurel, who stood just behind him. We found out about the capacity problem when Susan arrived. There's no capacity problem. There are 36 chairs and 37 people. Susan arrived unannounced. That's unfortunate, but uncomplicated. My aunt came to repair something with my mother, Laurel said. I kept my eyes on Owen. I'm speaking to you. His mouth tightened. We're trying to handle this without humiliating anyone. And this is your solution. It's 12 minutes. So you sit here. He blinked. What? Watch the monitor. I'll stand at the altar in your place. Mom, come on. No, explain it. If the ceremony is just 12 minutes and the screen is the same as being there, why don't you use it? Laurel made a small sound of disbelief. Owen rubbed one hand over his forehead. Susan already feels like she shouldn't have come. She shouldn't feel that way, I said, but I didn't make her feel it. No one said you did. You just decided I should pay for it. A violin played the opening phrase of the processional, stopped, then began again. Celeste appeared at the end of the corridor and tapped her wrist. Owen glanced at her. We have to line up. I know. Mom, I did object. There are sentences people offer as evidence of courage when what they mean is that they surrendered reluctantly. And then? I asked. Laurel's been under pressure all day. Evelyn's a wreck. Susan might leave if we tell her there's no place. So might I. He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw fear in his face. For 1 second, I thought that would be enough. I thought he would take my arm, lead me back to the chapel, and accept whatever discomfort followed. Instead, he lowered his voice. "Please, Mom, don't make today harder." Behind him, the first guests turned to watch the processional. I sat down because my knees no longer trusted me. Owen hesitated in the doorway. Laurel touched his sleeve and he let her guide him away. The door did not close all the way. Through the narrow gap, I watched my son take his place at the altar, while another woman settled into the chair bearing no trace of my name. The monitor had no sound. At first, I thought I had done something to the volume. I found buttons along the side of the monitor and pressed each one carefully. The picture brightened, darkened, then turned blue before returning to the chapel. Still no sound. Through the cracked door, I could hear the real room. Chairs shifted. Someone coughed. The quartet finished the processional, and the last note trembled into silence. On the screen, Laurel appeared at the back of the chapel with Evelyn beside her. The camera had been mounted high enough that everyone looked slightly flattened, like figures in an old painting. Evelyn kissed Laurel's cheek and took her seat beside Susan, my seat, if language still meant anything. Laurel walked toward Owen. He smiled when he saw her. I wish I could say his happiness made me angry, but it did not. It broke me in a more complicated place. This was my son. I had wanted that expression on his face. I had hoped he would find someone who made commitment feel like a rival rather than surrender. I had prayed for the very joy I was watching, even if I was watching it beside a rack of raincoats. When Laurel reached him, Owen took both her hands. His right cuff turned, and Paul's silver flashed beneath the chapel lights. I leaned closer to the monitor. The officiant began speaking. His mouth moved. Laurel laughed at something, and the guests laughed with her. Their laughter reached me through the wall several seconds before I saw it happen on the screen. That delay was the loneliest thing I had ever experienced. I was in the same building, separated from my son by one wall and one decision. Yet every moment arrived twice, first as something shared by everyone else, then as a silent picture granted to me afterward. A young woman in black stepped into the coatroom holding a radio. She looked startled to see me. "Oh, Mrs. Mercer, is that what the clipboard says? I'm Tessa. I'm with the video team." "Hello, Tessa." She noticed the monitor. "You don't have audio?" "Apparently, I'm not cleared for audio." Her face reddened. No, that's a cable problem." She crouched beside the counter and traced a wire to a small receiver. Through her radio, a man whispered, "Camera 2, hold wide." She unplugged something, plugged it back in, and suddenly the officiant's voice burst from the monitor. "The promises we make when life is orderly," he was saying, "they are the promises we keep when it isn't." Tessa lowered the volume quickly. "There. I'm so sorry. You didn't seat me here." She looked toward the chapel door, then back at me. She knew. Of course she knew. Weddings ran on whispered information. "Would you like me to find someone?" she asked. "The groom is occupied." I know what you meant. Thank you." She left with the radio pressed close to her chest. On the screen, Laurel unfolded a small card. Her voice shook when she began her vows. "Owen, you have taught me that love can be steady without being dull. You make room for every version of me, even the ones I haven't learned to like yet." I stared at the empty chair beside Evelyn. The framed photograph of Paul sat there smiling beneath his fishing hat. Laurel continued. She spoke about Owen bringing groceries when her mother was sick, learning to cook her grandmother's soup, sitting in the car with her during a panic attack because she was not ready to go inside. Her words were tender and specific. I recognized the man she loved. That made what he had done no less real. Owen took his card from his jacket. I expected a joke first. Humor was how he approached water he feared might be cold. Instead, he looked at Laurel for several seconds before speaking. "You once told me that home isn't a place. It's the person with whom you don't have to earn your place." The coatroom seemed to lose what little air it had. I had spent 7 years making sure Owen never had to earn his place with me. He had used that certainty as permission to remove it. He promised to tell her the truth even when honesty was uncomfortable. He promised to protect the life they built without taking either of them for granted. I listened to every word. When the officiant pronounced them married, applause filled the chapel. On the monitor, Owen kissed Laurel. Through the wall, the applause was enormous, close enough to vibrate through the wooden shelves. I clapped too. I do not know why. Habit, perhaps. Love. Defiance. I sat alone among strangers' coats and applauded my son because his marriage mattered to me, even while I understood that my presence did not matter enough to him. The chapel doors opened after the recessional. Guests spilled into the corridor in a cloud of perfume, congratulations, and immediate logistical confusion. I stood but did not leave the coatroom. My legs had steadied. Everything else felt oddly distant. Marjorie appeared in the doorway. She took in the chair, the monitor, and me. What is this? Overflow seating. Her expression sharpened. There was an empty chair next to me. That was Paul's. There was also half a chair between Gordon and his wife. They could have breathed selectively. Marjorie, why are you in a closet? Coatroom. Oh, forgive me. Was there a program? Before I could stop her, she turned toward the corridor. I caught her wrist. Don't, Diane. Not here. Where then? The linen cupboard? Guests passed behind her. A woman I barely knew smiled at us and said the ceremony had been beautiful. I'm glad, I answered. Marjorie waited until the woman moved away. Did Owen know? My grip loosened. She saw the answer. I'll kill him after the photographs, she said. Despite myself, I laughed. It came out like a cough. Laurel entered before Marjorie could say more. She had taken off her veil and happiness still glowed in her face. For a second, it seemed she had forgotten where she put me. Then she saw the monitor. Thank you, she said quietly, for being gracious. Marjorie made a sound that belonged to an animal cornered under a porch. Laurel glanced at her. Is something wrong? I'm deciding how honest weddings are supposed to be. Marjorie, please, I said. A photographer called from the corridor. We need the groom's family. Laurel reached for my hand. Come on, everyone's waiting. I looked at her fingers around mine. You removed me from the ceremony and now you need me for the photographs? Her smile vanished. I didn't remove you. Where would you say I was? We found a way for everyone to witness it. Did Susan watch on a screen? Laurel released me. Can we not do this right now? You're the one who came to collect me. Owen appeared behind her. Mom, the light's fading. It was so ordinary that I almost admired it. He said it as though we were late because I had misplaced an earring. Marjorie crossed her arms. Her dignity's fading too. Is that on the schedule? Marjorie, Owen said, please stay out of this. I was sitting beside your father's photograph while your mother watched you get married with the outerwear. I'm already in it. Several guests had begun pretending not to listen. I picked up my name card from the counter and slipped it into my purse. I did not yet know why. I only knew I could not leave it there. Let's take the pictures, I said. Marjorie stared at me. Diane. Not for them. For me. That was partly true. I wanted proof that I had been there, even if the photographs told a lie about where. Outside, the rain had cleared. The photographer arranged us on the stone terrace overlooking the lawn. Evelyn and Susan stood beside Laurel, their arms linked. Owen placed me on his other side. His hand settled against my back. You okay? He murmured. I turned my face toward him. Don't ask me that while a camera is pointed at us. The photographer lifted her lens. Everybody squeeze in. We squeezed. Beautiful. Diane, chin slightly down. I lowered my chin. Great. Owen, look at your mom. He turned toward me. Perfect, the photographer said. That's love. My son flinched. The photographs continued for 43 minutes. Married couple. Couple with bride's family. couple with groom's family, sisters reunited, mothers together, Owen and me alone. For our picture, the photographer told him to kiss my cheek. He did. His lips were warm, familiar. I smiled because the woman behind the camera had done nothing wrong. At the reception, my place was at the head table between Marjorie and one of Owen's college friends. Laurel's aunt sat with Evelyn close enough that they could keep touching each other's hands as though confirming the reunion had not disappeared. Dinner appeared in careful courses. I ate nothing but a bite of asparagus. Marjorie drank half her wine in one swallow. "Say the word," she whispered, "and I'll pull the fire alarm. There are easier ways to leave, not with this much theater." Owen and Laurel moved from table to table. Every time they reached ours, someone intercepted them. I watched Owen accept congratulations from people who had seen more of his wedding than I had. When he finally bent beside my chair, the band leader tapped his microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, in just a few moments, we'll invite our groom and his mother to the dance floor." Applause rose around us. Owen glanced toward the polished floor, then back at me. "They're running early. Can we talk after?" I looked across the room at Laurel. She stood beside the cake, watching. "Did she tell you to make sure I danced?" His eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "It means she understands photographs." "Mom, not now." There it was again. "Not now, not here, not today." There would always be a more convenient time for my pain, preferably one that never arrived. The band began the first notes of the song Owen had chosen, Paul Simon, because Paul used to sing it badly on road trips. I stood. Relief crossed my son's face. Then I picked up my purse. "What are you doing?" "Not making today harder." I kissed his cheek before he could step away. At the edge of the dance floor, couples and relatives turned toward us, smiling in anticipation. I slipped the folded name card from my purse, found a pen, and wrote on the back, "I won't help you display a relationship you were willing to hide." I placed it in Owen's hand, then I walked out before the band leader could say my name. The hallway outside the ballroom was empty except for a waiter carrying a tray of champagne. He stepped aside when he saw me coming, and one of the glasses tilted dangerously. "Ma'am, I'm fine." He looked past me toward the music, then back at my purse clutched against my ribs. "That wasn't my question," he said. It surprised a laugh out of me. He steadied the tray with one hand and gave me a small, private smile. "Front doors are to your right." I thanked him and kept walking. The valet took my ticket without comment, but the car did not arrive immediately. I stood beneath the awning while damp wind lifted the edge of my dress. Through the ballroom windows, I could see the guests turning toward the dance floor. The band had stopped playing our song and moved into something brisk and harmless. A few people drifted into the lobby. No one came outside. That hurt too, though I had no right to expect Owen to follow me. I had left him holding a note in front of a room full of guests. His wife was waiting near the cake. 100 decisions would have to be made about music, announcements, explanations. Still, some part of me remained turned toward the door until the valet brought my car. My phone started ringing before I reached the main road. Owen. I let it ring. 30 seconds later, it rang again. At the first stoplight, a message appeared. "Where are you?" Then, "Mom, answer me." I placed the phone face down in the passenger seat. It vibrated so hard against the leather that it sounded like an insect trapped in a jar. The road home seemed longer in the dark. Rain had begun again, soft at first, then heavy enough that headlights smeared across the windshield. I drove with both hands tight on the wheel. Every few miles, I heard Owen's vows in my head. The person with whom you don't have to earn your place. I did not cry until I pulled into my own driveway. Even then, I cried badly. No graceful tears, no dignified silence. I folded over the steering wheel and made sounds Paul would have called structural. The green dress pulled at my ribs. One of my pearl earrings came loose and fell somewhere near the brake pedal. My phone rang again. This time it was Marjorie. I answered. "Where are you?" "Home." "You drove in this rain?" "I wasn't going to live at the inn. I'm coming." "No, stay." "Have you met me?" Marjorie, it's Owen's wedding. It was yours too. That undid me more efficiently than anything else had. She heard my breathing change. Her voice softened. Go inside. Take off the dress. I'll be there when I'm done committing light social sabotage. Don't make a scene. I don't make scenes. I make observations at an audible volume. Marjorie, all right, I'll wait until after the cake. She hung up before I could stop her. Inside, my house looked offensively normal. The kitchen counters were covered with serving platters for the farewell brunch. 2 folding tables leaned against the dining room wall. The refrigerator held trays of baked French toast, fruit salad, and egg casserole I had prepared the day before. A yellow note from Marjorie was taped to one dish. Do not let Evelyn rearrange the berries. I had expected 32 people at 10 in the morning. I removed my shoes near the stairs and went up in my stockings. In the bedroom mirror, my makeup was still mostly intact. The woman looking back at me could have returned to the reception and smiled through dessert. No one would have guessed where she had spent the ceremony. That realization made me take off the green dress as if it were burning me. I found the missing pearl in the car and placed both earrings in their box. I washed my face, put on Paul's old gray sweatshirt, and went back downstairs. My phone showed 11 missed calls, 7 from Owen, 2 from Marjorie, 1 from Celeste, and 1 from a number I did not recognize. Laurel had sent a message. I know you're upset, but leaving like that was cruel to Owen. I stared at the word cruel. I typed 3 different replies and deleted them all. At 11:20, headlights swept across the front windows. Marjorie let herself in with the emergency key I kept under a ceramic frog, a hiding place she considered an insult to burglars. She still wore her blue dress. Her hair had begun collapsing on one side, and she carried a slice of wedding cake wrapped in a cocktail napkin. I brought provisions. I don't want cake. I didn't say it was for you. She set it on the counter and looked at the brunch dishes. You're canceling this. No, Diane. People are expecting it. So were you. I opened the refrigerator and checked the fruit salad, though fruit had not changed substantially in the last 5 hours. Marjorie leaned against the counter. Owen told everyone you felt sick. That was kind. No, it was strategic. Evelyn told the table behind her that you'd been emotional all week. Laurel cried in the powder room. Susan tried to leave because she figured out whose seat she had. I shut the refrigerator. She didn't know, not until I told her. You promised not to make a scene. I told one woman the truth in a hallway. The hallway chose to distribute it. What did Susan say? She went white. Then she found Evelyn. Oh, God. Evelyn said you volunteered. A hollow little laugh escaped me. Of course she did. Celeste corrected her. I pictured Celeste with her headset and dignified emergency face. Of course she did. The reunion lost some of its glow. I turned away and began stacking napkins for the morning. Marjorie watched me. You don't have to do this. I said I would host. You also said you'd dance. That was before I saw the Coatroom, then let them discover cause and effect twice. I smoothed the top napkin. If I cancel, the story becomes that I ruined their wedding weekend because I didn't get my way. They already think that. I don't care what they think. That's a lie. Yes. She came around the counter and wrapped her arms around me. Marjorie was not a natural hugger. Her embraces had corners. I leaned into them anyway. At 10 the next morning, the first guests arrived carrying coffee and sympathy they pretended was casual. I wore black slacks and a pale blue blouse. My eyes were swollen, but I had learned from years of funerals that people would accept almost any face if you handed them a plate. Most of the guests behaved beautifully. They complimented the food. They talked about the inn, the rain, and how radiant Laurel had looked. A few asked if I was feeling better. I said I was. Evelyn arrived with Susan 15 minutes late. Evelyn kissed the air beside my cheek. You look rested. I slept 3 hours. Weddings are exhausting for everyone. Susan stood behind her holding a potted orchid. She looked as though she wanted the floor to open. This is for you, she said. You didn't need to bring anything. I did. I accepted the orchid. Thank you. Evelyn began to move toward the dining room, but Susan stayed. I didn't know, she said. I know. If I had known, I would never have. I know that too. Her eyes filled. I'm sorry. Evelyn turned back. Susan, we discussed this. No, you discussed it. I was in the room. Today is not the day. I set the orchid on the hall table. Apparently no day is the day. Guests nearby became very interested in the coat closet. Evelyn lowered her voice. Diane, you left my daughter's reception before the mother-son dance. I'm aware. She was humiliated. I was in a coat room. That arrangement was made because my sister came to repair a 30-year relationship. 28, Susan said. Evelyn glared at her. I opened the dining room door wider. There's coffee in the kitchen. Food is on the buffet. Evelyn held my gaze for another second, then walked past me. Susan touched my arm. I should have stood, she whispered. I should never have been asked to disappear. No. She followed her sister into the dining room. Owen and Laurel arrived at 10:35. They entered to applause from several guests, and Laurel managed a smile. She wore a white pantsuit and flat shoes, her hair gathered loosely at her neck. Owen looked as if he had slept even less than I had. He found me refilling the coffee urn. We need to talk. Good morning to you, too. Mom, there are cups on the other table. He reached for the pitcher in my hand. Please stop serving coffee for 1 minute. I let him take it. Laurel stood behind him, arms folded. The diamond on her left hand flashed when she tucked one elbow closer. Marjorie appeared in the kitchen doorway with a plate of French toast. Do we need supervision? No, I said. Yes, Laurel said at the same time. Marjorie leaned against the doorframe and took a bite. Owen lowered his voice. Why didn't you answer your phone? I was driving. For 2 hours. Then I was not answering my phone. You scared me. I sent you a note. That wasn't a note, Mom. It was a grenade. Laurel looked toward the dining room. Everyone asked why the dance didn't happen. Tell them. I'm not discussing a private family issue with wedding guests. You made it public when you seated your aunt in my place. Our ceremony wasn't public. That is a breathtaking argument. Owen put the coffee pitcher on the counter too hard. Liquid jumped from the spout. You could have stayed, he said. You could have told me afterward how angry you were. I did tell you. In the coat room. You gave me an ultimatum 5 minutes before the ceremony. I asked you not to remove me from your wedding. You threatened to leave. No. I said I might leave. You decided I wouldn't. His face changed. I saw the exhausted boy inside the angry man, and my body responded before my mind did. I wanted to touch his arm, reassure him, tell him we would fix it. That instinct had raised him, comforted him, and possibly taught him the wrong thing. Laurel stepped closer. You wanted him to choose you over me on our wedding day. No, I said. I wanted him to tell you I belonged in the chapel. You made every part of the engagement about whether you belonged. That is not true. You changed the florist appointment. The florist called me because you weren't answering. You invited the Moreland cousins before we finalized the list. Owen said they were included. I said we were discussing them, Owen said. The correction landed harder because it was fair. I looked at him. Then I misunderstood. You always misunderstand in the direction of taking over, Laurel said. Marjorie set down her plate. And you always accept the help before objecting to the helper. Stay out of it, Owen snapped. I held up a hand to Marjorie. The dining room had gone quiet. Through the doorway I saw Evelyn frozen beside the fruit salad. Every person in my house was listening while pretending not to. I picked up the coffee pitcher and wiped the spill with a towel. I will not fight with you in front of guests, I said. Owen gave a bitter laugh. Now you care about appearances? I have always cared. That is part of the problem. I carried the pitcher to the urn and filled it again. My hand shook, but only slightly. When the last person leaves, I said, You and Laurel can stay. We will talk privately. Until then, you may eat the breakfast I promised you. Laurel opened her mouth. I looked directly at her. But understand something now. I am done being the person everyone calls understanding. when what they mean is easiest to hurt. No one answered. Even Marjorie stopped chewing. Then Evelyn cleared her throat in the dining room and asked whether anyone had tried the French toast. Conversation resumed in pieces, too brightly at first. Forks touched plates. Someone laughed at a remark no one else had heard. Owen stepped back from the counter. "Fine," he said. "After." Laurel looked at him as if she had expected more. Then she turned and left the kitchen without taking a plate. The remaining hour stretched longer than the wedding ceremony. I refilled coffee, wrapped leftover cake for guests, and stood through 3 separate compliments about how well the weekend had gone. Each person studied my face after saying it, hoping I would make the sentence true. Susan stayed close to Evelyn but did not speak to her. At one point, she came into the kitchen with a stack of cups and began rinsing them. "You're a guest," I said. "So were you." She winced at her own words. I handed her a dish towel. "Dry." We worked side by side for several minutes. "I almost didn't turn into the driveway yesterday," she said. "The inn driveway?" "Any driveway." I drove past the entrance twice. I thought if I showed up, Evelyn might have security remove me. Bellwether's security was a valet named Jordan. He looked capable. "What happened between you?" She dried the same cup 3 times. "It would take longer than this brunch. I have leftovers." That drew a faint smile. "Our father was difficult," she said. "Evelyn made him softer in memory after he died. I didn't cooperate. There was an argument. I said something about her marriage that was true and unforgivable. Those often travel together. She said something about mine that was only half true, which somehow hurt worse." She placed the cup on the counter. "I'm not telling you this as an excuse. I came without answering because if I answered, she could reject me. I thought arriving would force a moment. It did." "Yes." Susan looked through the doorway at Evelyn. "I just didn't know the moment would cost someone else. It shouldn't have. I could have sat in the coatroom. There should not have been a coatroom seat." She nodded. "Evelyn told me you volunteered because you wanted us together. What did you say when you learned I hadn't?" I asked her why she needed to lie if it had been the right thing to do. I looked at her. "And?" She said she was trying to protect Laurel. "From what?" "You." The words sat between us without decoration. Susan folded the towel into a careful square. "For what it's worth, I don't think Laurel planned it before I arrived. I know she didn't. That doesn't make it better." "No." Evelyn appeared in the doorway with her handbag on her arm. "Susan, are you ready? I'm helping. Diane has a dishwasher. The dishwasher wasn't seated in the coatroom." Evelyn's face tightened. "I apologized for the misunderstanding. You apologized that I found out. I will not be punished for wanting my sister at my daughter's wedding. No one asked you to choose." "There wasn't room." Susan set down the towel. "There was room for the groom's mother until you decided my forgiveness required upholstery. I turned away because the line was better than anything Marjorie had managed, and I did not want Evelyn to see my smile." Evelyn drew herself up. "I waited 28 years for you to walk back into my life, and Diane waited 35 to see her son get married." Neither woman moved. Then Susan picked up her purse. "I'll drive myself. You came in my car, I'll get a ride." "With whom?" "Jordan the valet, if he's as capable as Diane says." She kissed my cheek before walking out. Evelyn followed, calling her name in the crisp whisper people use when they want to shout in respectable houses. The last guests lingered until almost noon. Their reluctance to leave had nothing to do with the coffee. They wanted to know what would happen after the door closed. I disappointed them by remaining pleasant. Marjorie stacked plates while watching Owen and Laurel across the room. They had spent most of the brunch apart. Owen stood near the window with his hands in his pockets. Laurel sat at the cleared dining table, turning her wedding ring around her finger. When the final guest left carrying a foil-wrapped piece of egg casserole, Marjorie locked the front door. "I can stay," she said. "No." That sounded less like an answer than an error. "I need to speak to them. You can speak in front of me. Laurel already thinks I make our family a coalition against her." Marjorie considered that. I don't enjoy when unreasonable people make reasonable observations. Go home. She put on her coat, then pointed 2 fingers at Owen. Your mother watched your vows without sound. I know, he said. No, you know the sentence. That is not the same as knowing. Marjorie, I said. She kissed my forehead and left. The house changed when the door shut behind her. It became too quiet for performance. Laurel remained at the dining table. Owen came into the kitchen but did not sit. I carried 3 mugs of coffee to the table. No more serving, Owen said. This one is mine. He sat. For a while, none of us spoke. Sunlight crossed the table and illuminated crumbs, fingerprints, and a purple smear where a blueberry had been crushed into the cloth. Laurel kept turning her ring. I am sorry I invited the Moreland cousins before the list was final, I said. She looked up. I believed Owen had said they were included. He hadn't. I heard what I expected to hear. Owen leaned back slightly, surprised. I'm also sorry I changed the florist appointment, I continued. Even if I thought I was solving a problem, I should have called you first. Laurel studied me. Okay, that does not excuse what happened yesterday. Her shoulders stiffened. You can be angry that I overstepped, I said. You can ask me to step back. You can tell me I am making you crazy. You cannot quietly remove me from my son's wedding and call it a boundary. I didn't call it a boundary. You called it a capacity issue. It was. Owen rubbed his face. Can we stop arguing over the terminology? No, I said. The terminology is doing a lot of work. Laurel's fingers left her ring. I had minutes to decide. My aunt showed up, my mother was falling apart, and every person in that building was asking me questions. You were the only one I thought might be flexible. Why? Because you were family. I waited. She heard it after she said it. Her gaze shifted away. Owen spoke quickly. What she means is that Susan wasn't stable in the situation. I don't think she was going to overturn a table. She might have left, Laurel said. So you made sure I knew I could. I didn't think you would. The honesty of it silenced us. Laurel pressed her lips together. I thought you would be upset, she said. I didn't think you would walk out. Because? Because you always say, family shows up. I looked at Owen. And you? He stared into his coffee. I thought you'd understand why it mattered. I understand why Susan mattered. Then why are we doing this? Because I mattered too. His eyes lifted. Not more, I said. Not instead, too. Laurel pushed her chair back an inch. There wasn't a solution where no one got hurt. There was a solution where the person who arrived without responding to the invitation did not take the groom's mother's seat. That would have devastated my mother. And this devastated yours, I said to Owen. He recoiled as if I had slapped him. Don't do that. Do what? Turn it into a loyalty test. You keep calling it a test because you failed a choice you actually made. He stood so abruptly that the table shook. I did not choose to hurt you. No, you chose not to upset Laurel. Hurting me was the price you accepted. Laurel stood too. He supported his wife. If supporting you required putting me in a coatroom, then one of you should have questioned the requirement. You wanted him to embarrass me in front of my family. I wanted him to say, my mother stays. He could have said it privately. He could have said it kindly. He could have helped you find another answer. There wasn't time. There is always time to decide who is expendable. Owen walked to the window. Outside, Marjorie's tires had left dark tracks on the damp street. We can't undo it, he said. No. So what do you want? That question exposed the distance between us more clearly than anything else had. He was waiting for a task. An apology with approved wording. A dinner reservation. Some action that would restore the arrangement by evening. I want you to understand what you did. I've said I'm sorry you were hurt. I don't want an apology for my reaction. He turned. I'm sorry you were in the coat room. You keep making the room the actor. What do you want me to say? The truth. The truth is, we made a decision under pressure, and you responded by humiliating us at our reception. There it was. I nodded slowly. Thank you. For what? For finally saying what you believe. Laurel took Owen's hand. The gesture was protective and possessive at once. We should go, she said. Not yet. I looked at both of them. There is something else. Owen's expression changed. What? I'm not moving to Hawthorne Commons. He stared at me. My house had been listed for 3 weeks. I had paid a deposit on a 2-bedroom apartment 12 minutes from their townhouse. Owen had measured the second bedroom himself and joked that it was just large enough for him to hide in after marital disagreements. Laurel had sent me listings, paint colors, and photographs of restaurants where we could have spontaneous Tuesday dinners. You already signed the lease, he said. I can withdraw before the final date. You'll lose the deposit, I know. Laurel's voice went flat. So this is punishment? No, you don't get the reaction you want, so you take away the move. The move was based on an idea of our relationship that no longer feels true. After one day, Owen asked. After one honest day. He stared around the dining room, at the old sideboard, Paul's photograph on the wall, the doorway where I had marked Owen's height until he was taller than I was. You said this house was too much for you. It is. You said you were lonely here. I am. The words cost more spoken aloud. Then why stay? He asked. Because I would rather face loneliness in my own life than move closer so I can be useful in yours. His face tightened. That's unfair. Perhaps. I'm too hurt to make a permanent decision that puts me 12 minutes from people I currently don't trust with my place at a table. We wanted you near us, he said. You wanted spontaneous dinners, help when work ran late, someone to receive packages when you traveled. You wanted me near enough to be convenient. That's not all. No, I know you love me. That is what makes this harder. Laurel picked up her handbag. Come on, Owen. He did not move at first. Then he took Paul's cufflink box from his jacket and set it on the table. I stared at it. I can't wear these right now, he said. He left them beside the crushed blueberry and followed his wife out. The front door closed. I sat alone in the quiet house, looking at the small navy box. Under the cufflinks, still folded, was the note he had never read. I knew every word inside it. I had written the note at my kitchen table after midnight, crossing out 3 attempts because they sounded too much like instructions. Paul used to say I could turn a birthday card into a performance review if given enough space. The final version had been short. Marriage will ask you to protect the person beside you. Just remember that protection and agreement are not the same thing. Tell the truth when it is uncomfortable. Be kind without becoming careless. Build a home where neither of you has to earn a place. Dad would be proud of the man you are. So am I. Love, Mom. I folded it again without reading beyond the first line and returned it beneath the cufflinks. Then I carried the box upstairs and put it in the back of my desk drawer. For the next 2 hours, I cleaned. I scraped plates, wrapped leftovers, wiped the crushed blueberry from the tablecloth, and carried folding chairs to the basement one at a time. Each trip down the stairs made my knees ache. I could have left the chairs for someone else, but there was no one else, which felt both tragic and satisfying. At 3, Marjorie came back without knocking. She found me kneeling beside the dining table, trying to fold one leg that had jammed. Did you move the body already? She asked. No body. So the conversation went well. I pushed the metal brace. It snapped closed and pinched my thumb. Damn it. Marjorie took the chair from me. This is why people your age have sisters. We know where you keep the ice. I am your age. You're 3 years older. In chair years, that's significant. She set the chair against the wall and opened the freezer. What happened? They think I humiliated them. You did. I looked at her. What? She wrapped ice in a dish towel. You left before a dance in front of 100 people. It was humiliating. It was also the first honest moment of the day. She handed me the ice. I told them I'm not moving. Marjorie stopped. Oh, I'll call Hawthorne Commons tomorrow. Your deposit? Gone, probably. And the listing, I'll take the house off the market. She sat across from me. Humor left her face. Are you sure? No. That seemed to surprise her more than certainty would have. I pressed the ice to my thumb. I was sure when I said it. Now I'm sitting here with 48 miniature quiches and a 5-bedroom house I complain about every winter. You don't have to keep the decision because you made it angry. I didn't make it because I was angry. Diane, you could power the Eastern Grid right now. I made it because I saw something clearly. Marjorie waited. They love having me close, I said. I thought that meant they wanted me. Maybe they did. But yesterday, when wanting me came into conflict with anything else, they moved me out of sight. This morning, Owen was more upset about the dance than the ceremony. He may be in shock. So am I. Shock is not famous for fairness. I set the ice on the table. If I move now, every dinner invitation will feel like proof. Every time Laurel asks me to pick something up, I'll wonder whether I'm family or staff. Every time they make plans without me, I'll hear that coatroom door. Then don't move now. I lose the apartment. You lose money. You have not been evicted from the concept of apartments. That was Marjorie. Comfort delivered as a correction. She stayed until the chairs were downstairs and the leftovers had been divided into containers. Before leaving, she took the wedding cake she claimed not to like. At 9 the next morning, I called Hawthorne Commons. The leasing manager, Patrice, had shown me the apartment twice. She remembered which window I said would hold my reading chair. I'm sorry to hear that, she said when I told her. Would you like to transfer the deposit to a later unit? No. We can hold your application for 6 months. No, thank you. Are you certain? The corner units rarely become available. I looked out my kitchen window at Paul's neglected herb bed and the fence I had been promising to repaint for 3 summers. Yes, the cancellation cost me $4,800. At 10, I called the realtor and withdrew the house listing. Photographs had already been taken. A sign stood in the yard. 2 showings were scheduled for the week. She was professional, but disappointment sharpened every syllable. I paid for the staging consultation and the photographer. She removed the listing that afternoon. The sign left 2 narrow holes in the lawn. I stood over them longer than necessary. Owen and Laurel were scheduled to fly to California the following morning for 10 days. Before the wedding, they had given me a printed itinerary in a blue folder, along with a key to their townhouse and instructions for Laurel's plants. There were 9 plants, each with different opinions about water. Owen had joked that keeping them alive would prove I was ready to become a city person. The folder sat on my desk beneath a stack of moving estimates. I called Owen. He did not answer. I left a message. I'm returning the key and the folder. I won't be able to check the house while you're away. I realize this is late notice, and I'm sorry for that. You'll need to make another arrangement. I drove the key to their townhouse and put it through the mail slot in a plain envelope. It landed on the hardwood with a small metallic sound. I did not use the key to enter. By the time I returned home, Laurel had texted, "You agreed to do this weeks ago." I wrote back. I also agreed to move. Circumstances changed. 3 dots appeared immediately. So the plants are being punished, too. I almost smiled. They're plants, Laurel. Ask your neighbor or hire someone. Her answer came 5 minutes later. This is what I mean. The minute you don't feel appreciated, every act of love becomes leverage. That one reached its target. I sat in the car in my driveway and read it again. There was truth in it, or enough truth to be dangerous. During the engagement, I had reminded Owen more than once how much I was doing. I had said, after everything I handled this week, before asking why I had not been included in a tasting. When Laurel resisted my suggestions, I had occasionally withdrawn help with a stiffness meant to make her notice its absence. I had called those things boundaries. From her side, perhaps they had looked like invoices. I typed, "You are right that I have sometimes used helping as a way to secure closeness. I am sorry for that. I should have asked what you wanted, instead of assuming that being useful gave me a voice in every decision." I stared at the message before sending it. It felt like handing someone a knife and trusting her to recognize it as honesty. Laurel replied an hour later. "Thank you. I'm glad you can finally see the pattern. Nothing about the chapel, nothing about Owen, nothing about the folding chair." I placed the phone face down. That evening, Owen called. "Did you really leave the key in our mail slot?" "Yes. We fly out tomorrow. I know. We're supposed to be packing, and now I'm trying to find someone to water 9 plants. Your neighbor may be able to help. Our neighbor's away. Then hire a plant service. A plant service. I believe capitalism has reached ferns." He did not laugh. "Mom, what are you doing? I'm stepping back." "No, you're canceling promises one at a time so we feel the consequences. I told Laurel I was sorry for agreeing to something and backing out late. She showed me." "Did she show you what she wrote before that?" "Yes. And I think she's right." I closed my eyes. "About which part?" "You do use help to create obligations. Then if people don't respond the way you want, you act like no one values you." I leaned against the kitchen counter. A stack of empty moving boxes stood near the pantry, each labeled in my handwriting. Books, linens, Paul, keep. That may be true sometimes. Sometimes, I am trying to be honest, Owen. Don't use that as an opportunity to make every grievance you have my fault. I didn't say every grievance. You put me in a coatroom, and you keep coming back to that. Yes, you apologized for the pattern. I apologized for overstepping. I did not apologize for being hurt." He was silent. Then, more quietly, he said, "Do you want us to cancel the trip?" "No, because this feels like something I'm going to get blamed for later. I do not want you to cancel your honeymoon. So what do you want me to do?" There it was again. The task request. Find someone for the plants. Take your trip. Think about why your mother's absence from a dance bothers you more than her absence from your vows. That's not true. You have not asked me once what it was like in that room. I know what it was like. No, you know where I sat. Mom, I can't do this tonight. I know. He breathed out hard. That's the thing you do. What thing? You say 2 words in that voice and make me feel like I failed some test I didn't know I was taking. You knew I was sitting in a coatroom, Owen. His breathing changed. "Have a safe flight," I said, and ended the call. It was the first time in his life I had hung up on him. The next morning, just after 6, he sent a single message. "We found someone for the plants." I did not answer. By noon, the family version of events had begun reaching me. Cousin Gordon called to say weddings were stressful, and mothers needed to remember the day was not about them. Paul's sister left a voicemail asking whether I had really abandoned Owen in the middle of the reception. A woman from my book club, who had not attended the wedding but had a talent for receiving information, invited me to coffee in the tone usually reserved for medical results. I declined all of them. Susan sent something different. "Evelyn and I are not speaking again. This is not your fault." For once, I'd like the person who was hurt to know that. I thanked her. Then I went upstairs and entered the room I had spent 3 weeks emptying for the move. The bookshelves were bare. Pale rectangles marked the walls where framed photographs had hung. Boxes stood in careful rows, labeled for a life I had canceled. I opened one marked Kitchen Donate and pulled out Paul's chipped red mixing bowl. I had decided the new apartment was too small for things I kept only because he had touched them. I carried it downstairs and placed it in the cupboard. Over the next 10 days, I unpacked my old life without mistaking it for the same one. I returned the spare moving boxes. I rehung pictures. I called a painter about the fence, then canceled when the estimate made me laugh. I ate dinner alone at the table instead of over the sink, which felt less like healing than improved posture. Owen did not call from California. I told myself I was relieved. Then, on the 9th night, my phone lit beside my plate. It was a photograph of the Pacific at sunset. No message, only dark water and an orange line along the horizon. I looked at it for a long time. Then I placed the phone face down and finished my dinner while it was still warm. The ocean picture stayed unanswered. I saved it anyway. They landed 2 days later. I knew because the printed itinerary was still on my desk, though the blue folder was gone. At 3:17, their plane was supposed to touch down. At 3:42, I found myself watching a flight tracking website as a tiny airplane icon reached the coast. I closed the computer and felt ridiculous. Owen came to my house the next evening, carrying grocery store flowers and a paper bag from a bakery near his townhouse. He held them out when I opened the door. Peace offering. Which is which? The flowers are peace. The lemon cake is leverage. Honest negotiations. That's progress. He smiled carefully. I stepped aside. He walked into the foyer and stopped when he saw the rooms. The moving boxes were gone. Pictures had returned to the walls. The red bowl sat on the kitchen counter holding onions because I had not yet remembered what I used to keep in it. You unpacked everything. I canceled the move. I thought you might change your mind. I did change my mind. That was the problem. He set the flowers beside the sink. There was no vase waiting for them, so he opened the cabinet where I had always kept one. His hand stopped on the knob. Is it still okay if I get things out of your cabinets? The question was half sarcasm and half genuine uncertainty. Yes, Owen, I don't know the rules now. Neither do I. We'll have to ask each other instead of assuming. He found a vase and filled it with water. His California tan ended at his watch band. He looked rested, which irritated me until I remembered I loved him. How was the trip? Good. Just good? Laurel loved Big Sur. I discovered that driving along cliffs does not improve my personality. You always hated roads without shoulders. I like a clear margin for error. I almost said, except when the error belongs to me. I let the sentence pass unspoken. He trimmed the flower stems with the kitchen shears. For all the months of planning, resentment, and accommodation, my son was standing in my kitchen arranging carnations, as if we had only misplaced a week. Did the plants survive? I asked. Most of them. Most? The fern took a position. Against life? Apparently. I laughed. He did too. The sound eased something, but not enough. We ate lemon cake at the kitchen table. Owen talked about the fog, a restaurant in Monterey, and Laurel making him turn the rental car around because she saw seals on a beach. He showed me photographs. Laurel laughing with her hair blown across her face. Owen beside an enormous redwood, their feet in the Pacific. There were no wedding pictures on his phone. When the cake was gone, he folded his napkin into smaller and smaller squares. Evelyn's having a hard time. I'm sorry to hear that. Susan isn't returning her calls. That is between them. She thinks you turned Susan against her. I spoke to Susan for 10 minutes while she dried cups. You know how things sound when you say them. What things? Like there's a correct answer and everyone else failed to find it. I sat back. Did you bring lemon cake to discuss my tone? No. He folded the napkin again. People keep asking Laurel about the ceremony because people saw me come out of the coatroom. Marjorie told people. Marjorie told Susan. Who told Evelyn? Who told... Mom, it doesn't matter. The point is, it's become a story. It was an event first. Laurel feels like she can't defend herself without attacking you. She defended herself to me without difficulty. He ignored that. We thought maybe you could tell the family it was a misunderstanding, that you were overwhelmed and chose to leave before the dance. That is not what happened. You were overwhelmed. In the coatroom. I'm not asking you to lie. Then what are you asking me to call a misunderstanding? He looked toward the flowers. The seating. What part did I misunderstand? That there was no malicious intent. I have not told anyone there was. You wrote that note. To you. You left it in my hand in the middle of the reception. Would you have preferred I announce it? I would have preferred you dance with me. The words came out raw. For a moment, the kitchen disappeared. I saw him at 9 years old standing on my feet while we shuffled across the living room. Paul had taken a wooden spoon as a microphone and sung badly until Owen laughed so hard he could not stand. I wanted to dance with you, I said. You could have. No, I could have walked onto a dance floor after you walked away from me in a coat room. That isn't the same. His eyes shone, and he looked furious about it. You made me stand there alone. Yes. Do you hear yourself? I do. You did to me exactly what you're furious at me for doing to you. No. I refuse to help you pretend it hadn't happened. That's a nice distinction when you're not the one under a spotlight. I was not the one who arranged the spotlight. He pushed back from the table. I came because I missed you. I missed you too. It doesn't feel like it. What would make it feel like it? If I told the family Laurel did nothing wrong? If I hosted Sunday dinner and asked about photographs? If I assured you I'm still moving? I don't know. Something. There is no gesture I can make that will give you the old relationship without asking me to swallow what happened. He stood. I did not stop him. At the doorway, he looked toward the small desk in the living room. Do you still have Dad's cufflinks? Yes. Good. He did not ask for them. After he left, I put the flowers in the center of the table and ate another slice of lemon cake. Peace had failed, but the leverage was excellent. Laurel came 3 days later. She did not bring flowers. I was in the backyard trying to determine whether scraping old paint from the fence counted as progress or vandalism. She appeared at the side gate in jeans and a gray sweater, her hair tied back. Without wedding makeup and controlled lighting, she looked younger and more tired. I texted, she said. My phone's inside. Can we talk? I set down the scraper. We sat on the patio beneath an umbrella that had faded from red to a color best described as old tomato. Laurel declined coffee. She rested her hands on the metal table and turned her wedding ring once, then caught herself doing it. Owen told me about your conversation. Did he tell you the lemon cake was good? He said you made a joke about it. That sounds like me. He thinks joking means you're softening. I joke at funerals. I know. That was true. At Paul's service, Laurel had found me behind the church, telling Marjorie that the floral arrangement looked large enough to conceal a horse. Laurel had laughed when no one else did. We had liked each other then. Cautiously. She looked toward the fence. I didn't come to ask you to change the story. Good. I came because of what you wrote to me. My apology. I meant it. I know. She waited as if I should supply more. I said, You want me to say it in person? I think we should be honest. All right. I often confused being needed with being included. I helped, then expected influence. That was unfair to you. Her shoulders lowered. You called the florist after I told you I had it handled. She called me first, but you took over. Yes. You added people to the engagement dinner. 2 people. And yes, you told Owen you didn't understand why we needed private vows when the chapel was already intimate. I expressed an opinion to my son about our wedding after I asked you to stop. I looked at her. Yes, the word cost me. That was how I knew it was the right one. Laurel drew a breath. Every time I tried to set a limit, Owen told me you meant well. If I got angry, I was hurting a widow who had lost her husband. If I let you help, you became part of the decision. There was no way to say no without becoming the woman taking someone else's son. You were marrying someone else's son. You know what I mean. I do. The yard was quiet except for a lawn mower somewhere beyond the fence. I am sorry, I said, not as an exchange. Not if you apologize too. I should have respected the difference between being Owen's mother and being part of your marriage. Tears filled her eyes. She blinked them back. Thank you. I waited. She looked at the table. Was there anything else? I asked. Her head lifted. You think I'm here to confess I planned to humiliate you. Did you? No. Susan arrived. My mother panicked. Celeste said we couldn't add a chair, and I made a decision. You selected me. You were the only person who could be moved without creating a larger scene. That is another way to say I was safest to hurt. Laurel stood and walked to the edge of the patio, her arms folded across her chest. You want the ugly truth? Yes. When I realized someone had to give up a seat, part of me thought it should be you. The air seemed to sharpen. She turned back. Not because I hate you. I don't. But after 18 months of you being inside every conversation, every appointment, every disagreement, yes, part of me thought you could be outside one thing. Then you did mean to hurt me. I meant to draw a line, in a coatroom. I know how it looks. I know how it felt. Her face tightened. You always bring it back to your pain. This conversation is about putting me out of my son's wedding. Where would you like me to bring it? I'm trying to tell you why. And I listened. You felt crowded. I was intrusive. You wanted one thing that did not include me. Yes. And when your aunt arrived, you saw an opportunity. That's not fair. Is it inaccurate? She looked away. There it was, not a plan, not a conspiracy, but a flash of satisfaction she had mistaken for justice. I felt something in me become very still. Laurel, you were entitled to boundaries. You were entitled to tell me no. You were even entitled not to like me. You were not entitled to use Owen's vows to teach me my place. Her eyes filled again, but her voice stayed hard. And you weren't entitled to punish Owen for my decision. He made it with you. He was trying to support me. He was trying not to upset you. What is the difference? Courage. She picked up her purse from the chair. I thought apologizing might help, she said. You didn't apologize. Her hand tightened around the strap. I came here. That is geography. For a second, I saw the real Laurel again, the woman with the startled laugh, the one who had chosen Paul's happiest photograph. Hurt crossed her face, followed by anger. I'm glad you finally recognize your pattern, she said. Maybe someday you'll understand ours wasn't created in one afternoon. She walked through the side gate and closed it carefully behind her. I stayed beneath the faded umbrella, looking at the half-scraped fence. She had given me something I had asked for, the truth. It did not feel like progress. It felt like finding out the locked door had been locked on purpose. The fence took me 11 days. It would have taken a professional 2, but professionals had ladders, power sanders, and enough sense not to begin with the section behind the hydrangeas. I had a metal scraper, an old radio, and anger that needed regular employment. By the time I finished, the fence was not beautiful. It was white in most places and pale gray in others. One post leaned toward Marjorie's side of town, but I had done the work without asking Owen to drive over with his drill, which was either growth or spite. Probably both. He called on Sundays. For years, Sunday had meant dinner at my house unless someone objected by Thursday. After the wedding, neither of us mentioned the old arrangement. He called around 4 when he would once have been pulling into my driveway, and we spoke carefully about neutral things, work, weather, a leaking faucet in his upstairs bathroom. The first time he mentioned the faucet, I gave him the name of a plumber. I know how to call a plumber, he said. Then we've solved it. I was making conversation. I'm out of practice. He sighed. How's the fence? Still vertical. Laurel said you were scraping it yourself. Laurel visited. I know. There was a pause shaped like everything she had told him afterward. Did she tell you what she said? I asked. She said you had a productive conversation. She did not use that word while she was here. What word would you use? Honest. That sounds productive. It can also be destructive. He went quiet. I could have told him Laurel admitted part of her wanted me outside. The sentence waited behind my teeth every time he called. I kept it there. Not to protect Laurel, exactly. I wanted Owen to understand his own decision without making hers carry all its weight. How are you? He asked. Fine. You hate when I say fine. Yes. So, I'm lonely. The silence changed. I could come next Sunday, if you want to. Would that be okay? Yes. Laurel, too? The answer should have been automatic. It wasn't. If she wants to come, she'll think you don't want her. I don't know what I want from her yet. At least you're honest. I'm trying. The following Sunday, they canceled because Evelyn had invited them to dinner. Owen sounded embarrassed when he called. She says Susan might come. I hope she does. You're not angry? That your mother-in-law invited you to dinner? that we're not coming. I'm disappointed. That isn't the same. He waited, perhaps expecting my voice to perform the rest of the argument. Okay, he said finally. Okay. Susan did not go to Evelyn's dinner. I knew because she sent me a photograph of a burnt pot roast with the message, "Forgiveness remains undercooked." Against my better judgment, I laughed. We had exchanged a few messages since the brunch. Nothing intimate. She sent me a picture when the orchid produced a new bloom. I sent her the name of the bakery where Owen bought the lemon cake. We were two women connected by an injury neither of us had intended to share. I did not mention the messages to Evelyn. That felt less like secrecy than basic sanitation. The family began asking about Thanksgiving in October. Paul and I had hosted for 26 years. After he died, I kept hosting, because changing the menu seemed more difficult than grief. The group had expanded when Owen met Laurel. Evelyn brought sweet potatoes topped with pecans, arranged so precisely that people hesitated to disturb them. Susan had never attended. A cousin texted asking what time she should bring the wine. Paul's sister asked whether I was still making 2 kinds of stuffing. Evelyn sent a group email titled Thanksgiving Coordination with a spreadsheet attached. I read it twice. Then I replied to everyone. I won't be hosting this year. I'm making other plans with Marjorie. I hope you all have a lovely holiday. The phone rang in less than a minute. Marjorie, what are our plans? We're making them now. I need more warning if I'm expected to cook. You own an oven. I own a piano too. You've heard the results. I thought we could have something small at your place. My table seats 4 if nobody has elbows. There are 2 of us. You're serious? Yes. She lowered her voice. Did something happen? No. Then why are you canceling Thanksgiving? I'm not canceling Thanksgiving. The government has not given me that authority. You know what I mean? I don't want 30 people in my house acting as though the wedding was a scheduling error. You could invite only Owen and Laurel and force him to choose between us and Evelyn. He's an adult. Adults choose where to eat dry turkey every year. I don't want to create a test. Marjorie was quiet. Fine, she said, my place. But you bring the turkey. You said you couldn't cook. I said I wouldn't. Owen called after work. What other plans? Dinner with Marjorie, that's not another plan. That's a smaller version of the same plan. It's the version I can manage. Laurel thinks this is directed at her. Everything I do cannot be directed at Laurel. Canceling the first family holiday after the wedding seems fairly pointed. I am not ready to host her mother in my home. Then don't invite Evelyn. I am also not ready to watch everyone take sides over who was invited. So you just don't invite anyone? Yes, he breathed out. Mom, the wedding was 6 weeks ago. I know. You said you didn't want an apology with a deadline, but apparently you have a punishment without one. I don't know how long this will take, because you won't let anything be normal. Normal required me to keep things comfortable for everyone else. No. Normal was Thanksgiving. His voice cracked slightly on the word. I pictured him at my table carving badly while Paul gave instructions from 3 feet away. The year after Paul died, Owen had stood in the same place and asked me where the knife was, though it had been in the same drawer his entire life. I'm sorry, I said. I know this hurts. Do you? Yes. Then change your mind. No? He hung up without saying goodbye. Marjorie arrived the next morning carrying coffee and disapproval. You knew already, I said. Owen called me. He called you. He asked me to talk sense into you. Did you tell him how unlikely that was? I told him I'd try. I let her in. She followed me to the kitchen and put both coffees on the counter. You were right to leave the wedding. This sounds promising. You were right not to move. Less promising. You were right to stop doing things they assume you'll do. Marjorie. But being right can become a very comfortable room, Diane. Mine had a folding chair. Her face tightened. That's what I mean. Everything comes back to those 12 minutes. It was closer to 18. The feed began before. Do you hear yourself? I crossed my arms. She took one of the coffees and slid the other toward me. I'm not saying forgive them because family is family. That phrase has hidden more bad behavior than wallpaper. I'm saying you are measuring every interaction against the worst thing Owen has done. What should I measure it against? The other 35 years. He is not 5. I know. That's why the 35 years count. I picked up the coffee but did not drink. He called you to pressure me. He called me because he misses you and has no idea how to reach you. He could start with an honest apology. He thinks he gave one. He apologized that I was in the room, not that he put me there. Then tell him that without making him guess the exact sentence. I have. Tell him again. Why is all the labor mine? It isn't. But you're the person I'm talking to. I hated when she sounded reasonable. It felt like disloyalty conducted with good grammar. I invited him to dinner, I said, and he canceled once, for Evelyn. For a dinner where Susan didn't even show up, he chose. Yes, adults do that. Then sometimes they choose again. She took a drink. You're building a life where no one can assume anything from you, she said. That sounds safe. It also sounds exhausting. What do you want me to do? Invite your son to lunch. Don't invite a verdict. See what happens. And Laurel? What about her? If I invite him alone, I'm excluding his wife. You are allowed to have lunch with your son without convening the marriage. I looked at the refrigerator. A photograph of Owen and Laurel from their engagement session was still held there by a magnet shaped like a lobster. I had not removed it. I had considered removing it, which was worse. I'll think about it. You'll overthink about it. That is how I think. Marjorie left after extracting a promise that our Thanksgiving turkey would weigh less than the table. I waited 2 days, then texted Owen. Would you like to have lunch with me Saturday? Just us. No agenda. I miss you. His answer came 20 minutes later. I'll ask Laurel. The reply irritated me, then embarrassed me for being irritated. Of course he would tell his wife. Of course a private lunch after weeks of conflict might concern her. An hour later, he wrote again. Saturday works. We met at a diner halfway between our houses. Owen arrived early and had already ordered coffee for me. He remembered I took cream but no sugar. For the first 20 minutes, we did what Marjorie had suggested. No agenda. He told me about a new employee who wore bicycle shoes to meetings and clicked across the office floor like a tap dancer. I told him my fence looked striped in late afternoon sun. Then a server dropped a tray near the kitchen. The crash startled everyone. Owen reached automatically for his water and knocked it into his lap. I laughed so hard I had to cover my mouth. He stared down at his wet pants. I'm glad we're healing. I'm sorry. You're not. No. He started laughing too. For 1 warm minute, we were ourselves. Then he reached for a napkin and Paul's old watch showed beneath his cuff. I looked at it too long. You still have the cufflinks? He asked. Yes, keep them safe. I always have. I know. He blotted his pants. Laurel doesn't want me coming here without her, he said. The warmth vanished. Then why did you? Because I wanted to see you. Does she know? Yes. She said if I needed private time with you, I should take it. That sounds reasonable. She also said you'd use it to get between us. I set down my coffee. Have I? No. Do you think I will? He looked toward the counter where the server was rebuilding the fallen tray. I don't know what to think anymore. About me? About any of it. He pressed his palms together. I know what we did was wrong, he said quietly. I also know you made Laurel feel pushed aside for a year. Every time I defend you, she says I'm proving her point. Every time I defend her, you look at me like I left you in that room again. I am not asking you to defend me to your wife. What are you asking? For you to take responsibility for yourself. He nodded once, but his face closed. We finished lunch talking about the weather. Thanksgiving at Marjorie's was small enough that the turkey barely fit between us. Her gravy developed lumps large enough to name. We laughed, played cards, and refused to say how quiet it was. At 8:30, after I had washed the last plate, someone knocked on her door. Owen stood in the hallway alone, still wearing his coat. He held a foil-wrapped plate in one hand. "I brought you Evelyn's sweet potatoes," he said. Then he looked at me and added, "And I need to tell you what happened after you left the reception." Marjorie opened the door wider. "Come in before the sweet potatoes become a weather event." Owen stepped inside. His gaze moved from the two place settings on the table to the half-empty bottle of wine and the deck of cards between them. "You really did have Thanksgiving alone." "I was here," Marjorie said. "You know what I mean. I generally do. That's why I object." He handed her the plate. "Evelyn made those." Marjorie held it at arm's length. "Are the pecans still arranged by military rank?" "More or less." She carried the plate to the kitchen, giving me a look that asked whether I wanted her to disappear. I shook my head. Owen removed his coat but did not sit. He walked to the window and looked out at the parking lot below Marjorie's condo. Her small living room had never been designed for emotional confrontations. There was nowhere to pace without circling an ottoman. "What happened after I left?" I asked. He put his hands in his pockets. "The band leader announced the dance. I heard the beginning. He announced it again because he thought you were in the bathroom. Marjorie came back with 3 forks and the foil plate. I already hate this story." Owen ignored her. I stood there for maybe a minute. It felt longer. "Everyone was looking toward the doors, waiting for you to come back." "Did you read the card?" "Yes." The card. My place card. With the note written on the back, not the folded letter beneath the cufflinks. "What did you do?" "Nothing." I put it in my pocket. "Do you still have it?" His expression tightened. "Yes." That surprised me. "The band switched songs," he continued. "Laurel came onto the floor and we did the cake cutting early. People assumed the schedule had changed." "Some people did," Marjorie said. "Then you told Susan." I answered a direct question. "You told her Mom had been seated in the coatroom. Where was I supposed to say she was seated? The East Wing? Could you please let me talk?" Marjorie folded her arms. "Proceed inaccurately and I'll assist." I touched her elbow. "Let him." Owen sat on the edge of the ottoman. Susan confronted Evelyn near the bar. Evelyn said Mom volunteered. Celeste heard and said that wasn't true. Then Susan found Laurel. "What did Laurel say?" I asked. "That there had been a capacity problem and you agreed to help." "I did not. I know." It was the first time he had said those 2 words without resistance. He rubbed his palms together. Susan asked Laurel to look her in the eye and say, "You offered your seat." Laurel wouldn't. Then Evelyn started crying. Susan said she wished she had never come. He stared at the carpet. "Laurel blamed you," I said. "At first, I blamed you too." "Thank you for the update," Marjorie muttered. Owen looked at her. "My mother had just walked out of my wedding, after you walked into it without her. I know that now." Again, those words. Marjorie picked up the sweet potatoes and headed toward the kitchen. "I'm warming these. If anyone heals before I return, document it." The microwave door opened and closed. Owen leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Laurel and I had a fight after everyone left. Not a small one. She said you ruined the reception. I said she should have found another person to move. She said I agreed with her. You did." "Yes." He looked at me. I kept saying I was supporting my wife. That's what I told myself. Then Laurel said, "Don't make me your excuse. You chose this too." That sounded like Laurel. Not the managed version who softened every hard edge, but the woman who had stood under my faded umbrella and admitted the ugly part. She was right, I said. I didn't want her to be. People rarely schedule truth for when it's convenient. His mouth moved, almost a smile. We fought until 3 a.m. Then she went to sleep and I went downstairs, to the lobby, to the coat room. I did not move. It was unlocked. Most of the coats were gone. The chair was still there and the monitor was showing the ballroom. Marjorie stopped moving dishes in the kitchen. Owen's voice lowered. I sat down. The room seemed to narrow around us. The camera feed had a delay, he said. I could hear the staff stacking chairs through the wall before I saw them do it on the screen. I looked at my hands. I wondered if it had been like that during the ceremony. Yes. The sound worked. Not at first. His face changed. For how long? Until Laurel was halfway through her vows. He closed his eyes. A small part of me had wanted this moment. I had imagined Owen finally picturing the room correctly and being unable to escape what he saw. Now that it came, satisfaction felt cheap and thin. "I'm sorry," he said. I waited. He opened his eyes. "I am sorry we put you there. Not that I had been there. Not that I was hurt. We put you there." My throat tightened. "And I'm sorry I knew before I came to get you. Laurel told me the plan. I said it was a bad idea. She said Susan might walk out and Evelyn would blame her forever. I told her you would probably be upset but wouldn't make a scene." Marjorie made a wounded sound from the kitchen. Owen looked at me. "I counted on you being easier to hurt." The words were right. They did not repair anything, but they entered the room without disguise. I said. "No." "Yes, Owen." I sat down. I watched. I smiled for pictures afterward. You knew me. I used knowing you against you. That is what hurt. He nodded slowly. The microwave beeped. No one moved to open it. After a while, he said, "I still think leaving the reception was cruel. The honesty of it almost made me laugh." "All right. You don't agree?" "I think it was meant to hurt you." He looked surprised. "It was also meant to protect me," I said. "Those can both be true. So you admit you were punishing me." I refused the dance because I could not stand in front of everyone and perform closeness I no longer felt. But yes, I knew walking out would hurt you. A part of me wanted you to feel the empty space. He absorbed that. "Are you sorry?" "I am sorry you stood there waiting." "I am not sorry I left." That sounds like my first apology. It does. Marjorie appeared with the hot plate and set it on the coffee table. "Congratulations," she said. "You've reached moral symmetry. Eat something." We each took a fork. Evelyn's sweet potatoes were excellent, which annoyed Marjorie enough to restore normal conversation for several minutes. She wanted to know whether brown sugar counted as a vegetable. Owen said it did on federal holidays. Then his phone lit on the ottoman. Laurel. He looked at it but did not answer. "She knows you're here," I asked. "She knows I left her mother's." "That wasn't my question." "Yes, she knows." "Then answer. I'll call her in a minute. Don't make being honest with me into being careless with her." His eyes lifted. The line struck somewhere familiar, though he could not know why. He answered the call. "Hey, I'm at Marjorie's." "Yes, she's here." A pause. "No, I'm not asking her to apologize." Another pause, longer. "I'll tell you when I get home." His jaw tightened. "I know, me too." He ended the call. "What did she say?" Marjorie asked. "She asked whether I was staying long." "That means she asked whether she should be angry." "No, it means her mother's been telling everyone I left Thanksgiving to take Mom's side." "I did not ask you to leave," I said. "I know. What happened at dinner?" He placed his fork down. "Evelyn said Christmas should be at her house, too, since you apparently didn't want the family anymore." I felt the sentence physically. "What did you say?" "I told her not to speak for you." "And Laurel?" "She said the same thing." That surprised me. Owen saw it. Laurel isn't her mother. "I know. She told Evelyn the chapel decision was ours and she needed to stop telling people you volunteered." I looked toward the dark window. That could not have been easy. It wasn't. Evelyn cried. Susan didn't come. One of Laurel's cousins asked why everyone was whispering over the turkey. Then I realized I'd spent the entire meal talking about someone who was eating alone 10 miles away. "I was not alone," I said. Marjorie pointed her fork at him. "We had gravy." He smiled sadly. "I brought the sweet potatoes because I didn't know what else to bring." "They were a good choice," I said. He stayed another half hour. We did not resolve Christmas. We did not discuss the move. He helped Marjorie fit leftovers into containers and complained about the size of her refrigerator. At the door, he hugged her first. Then he faced me. His hesitation hurt, but I understood it. We were learning to ask. I opened my arms. He hugged me carefully. I could feel his heartbeat through his shirt. For one dangerous second, I wanted to tell him everything was forgiven, simply to keep him there. Instead, I said, "Thank you for telling me. I should have told you sooner." "Yes." He stepped back. "Can I come by Sunday? If you want. I want to get Dad's cufflinks." My breath caught. Of course, I shouldn't have left them like that, no. He nodded. We did not say what the cufflinks had come to represent. His father's marriage, my hopes for his, the promises heard late through a monitor. After Owen left, Marjorie shut the door and leaned against it. "Well," she said. "Well, was that an apology?" "It was the beginning of one." She studied me. "You know beginnings are allowed to be small." "I know." "Do you?" "I'm trying." On Sunday, Owen arrived without Laurel. He did not bring cake or flowers. He brought a small toolkit and repaired the loose hinge on my pantry door without being asked, then apologized for doing it without being asked. I made soup. He changed the bulb over the basement stairs. We spoke about ordinary things and approached every kindness like a dog that might bite. After lunch, I went upstairs to my desk. The Navy box was where I had placed it behind old bank statements and a packet of photographs. I carried it down and handed it to him. Owen opened the lid. The silver cufflinks rested on blue velvet. Beneath them, the edge of the folded note showed white. He looked at me. "What's this?" "The note I told you to read after the photographs." "I forgot, I know." He started to unfold it. I stood. "I'll give you a minute." He caught my wrist, not tightly, just enough to stop me. "Stay," he said. So I sat across from him while my son began reading the words I had written before either of us knew how much they would cost. His eyes stopped halfway down the page. He went back to the top and read it again. I could tell where he was by the small movements of his face. At the line about protection and agreement, his mouth tightened. At the words, "earn a place," he closed his eyes. The refrigerator hummed behind him. Somewhere inside the wall, a pipe clicked as the heat came on. "I wrote this before the ceremony," I said. "I know. I wasn't trying to make a point afterward. I know." He read the final lines once more, then laid the paper beside the box and flattened it with his palm. "You said Dad would be proud of the man I am. He would. How?" The question was so sharp that I almost answered defensively, because one terrible decision does not erase who you are. It wasn't one decision. "No." I agreed with Laurel. "I came to the coatroom. I asked you to sit there. I left you there. Then I let everyone believe you were sick." "Yes." He looked at me. "You don't have to agree that quickly. I don't want to make you list your failures until you hate yourself, but I won't make them smaller so you feel better." He picked up one cufflink and turned it between his fingers. "Dad always seemed sure." I laughed softly. "Your father once drove 40 miles in the wrong direction because he was too sure to ask me whether we had passed the exit. That's not what I mean." "I know." Owen set the cufflink down. "When you and Dad disagreed, how did he know when to back you and when to tell you that you were wrong?" "He didn't. Sometimes he guessed badly. You never told me that. You were our son, not the review board for our marriage." He leaned back. "Did he ever choose somebody else over you?" "Yes." The answer surprised him. "Who?" "His mother, usually. Grandma Mercer. She was lovely to you." "She was not always lovely to me." He stared as if I had revealed that his grandmother once robbed banks. "She criticized the way I cooked, cleaned, dressed you, spoke to you, and breathed near you. Your father spent the first 8 years of our marriage saying, 'That's just how she is.'" "What changed?" I packed his suitcase. Owen blinked. "Not to throw him out," I said. "He was leaving for a business trip. I packed 4 identical gray shirts and no underwear. A laugh escaped him before he could stop it. I attached a note that said, 'That's just how I am. Mom.' It was immature. Effective, but immature. What did he do? He bought underwear at the airport and came home willing to have a conversation. Owen shook his head, smiling despite himself. Then his expression sobered. Did he ever make you feel like you had no place? Once. He waited. Your grandmother planned a family photograph for her 70th birthday. Spouses were told to stand in the second row. When the photographer arrived, she asked for one with the real family. She meant her sons and grandchildren. What did Dad do? He stood beside me. Just like that? No. First he started walking toward her. I smiled at the memory. Then he looked back and saw my face. He came to me and said, "If Diane isn't real family, neither am I." Your grandmother did not speak to him for 2 months. I never knew. It wasn't your burden. But he chose you. Yes. Did that fix everything? No. It made the next choice clearer. Owen looked down at the note. I thought supporting Laurel meant agreeing with her in front of everyone. You were not in front of everyone when you came to the Coatroom. I know. You had a private chance. I know. He pressed his fingers to his eyes. I saw your face, Mom. My throat closed. In the Coatroom, he continued. When Laurel told me the plan, I thought you'd be angry. Then I walked in and saw you sitting there, and I knew it was worse than that. I said nothing. I knew, he repeated, and I still chose the easier person to hurt. The sentence from Thanksgiving returned, changed slightly and deepened by the note in front of him. I told myself it was because you were strong, he said, because you understood family, because you loved me enough to forgive me afterward. His voice cracked. But really, I chose the person I thought would still love me when it was over. I do still love you. I know. This time, certainty did not sound like entitlement. It sounded like grief. That wasn't trust, he said. It was cowardice. He covered his face with both hands. I moved my chair beside him. For several seconds, I did not touch him. Then I placed one hand between his shoulder blades, where I had rubbed circles when he was sick, heartbroken, or too young to name what frightened him. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I'm sorry, he said into his hands. I'm sorry I left you in that room. I'm sorry I cared more about keeping the ceremony smooth than whether you saw it. I'm sorry I made you the price of peace and then blamed you for not paying quietly. There it was, not perfect, not magic, but true. I let my hand fall. Thank you. He lowered his hands. His face was wet. Can you forgive me? Not all at once. Pain crossed his face, but he nodded. I don't know what forgiveness means if it requires me to act as though it didn't change us, I said. I can believe you are sorry. I can love you. I can want a relationship with you. I cannot give you back the mother who would have danced and cried in the car later. I don't want her back. Part of you does. He looked toward the boxes I had unpacked, though none remained in sight. I wanted you at Hawthorne Commons, he said. I know, not just for packages. I know that, too. I pictured stopping by after work. Sunday breakfast. You complaining that my neighborhood charges too much for tomatoes. I would have complained, I know. He picked up the folded note. When you canceled, it felt like you erased all of that. I had already signed a lease because I trusted a future I had not examined carefully. I needed distance before I built my life around yours. Will you ever reconsider? Maybe. Not now. He accepted that with visible effort. What do we do now? He asked. Come for lunch when you want lunch. How often? When you want, Owen. Not when you need proof I still love you. He nodded. And if you need help, ask. I may say yes. I may say no. Don't turn either answer into a verdict. What about Laurel? What about her? She's my wife. I know. I can't build something with you by leaving her outside. You shouldn't. But you don't want her here. I didn't say that. You said you don't know what you want from her. I know what I don't want. I don't want politeness used as a substitute for accountability. I don't want another visit where I apologize and she collects it as evidence. He winced. She told me about the patio conversation. All of it? I think so. Then you know she admitted part of her wanted me outside. Yes. I watched his face. How did that make you feel? Angry. With her? With both of us. With myself most. Good. He looked offended. Not good that you're angry. Good that you aren't asking me to organize it for you. He gave a tired laugh. We refolded the note along its original lines. Owen returned it beneath the cufflinks, then closed the box. Take them, I said. Are you sure? They're yours. He slipped the box into his jacket. At the door, he turned back. Laurel defended you at Thanksgiving. You told me. She didn't do it for me. I didn't assume she did. She's trying. So am I. He nodded. It was not an agreement or a request, just a fact placed between us. The following Sunday, he came for lunch again. The Sunday after that, he did not. He called first and said he and Laurel needed a day at home. I told him I understood, and this time the word did not require me to give up anything. He began asking before doing small things. Did I want him to look at the loose gutter? Could he bring Laurel next week? Would I mind if he took the old drill Paul had left in the basement? Sometimes the asking felt absurd. He had used that drill since college, but awkward courtesy was better than comfortable entitlement. I said yes to the gutter, yes to Laurel, and no to the drill because I was still using it. When they came together, Laurel brought a loaf of bread she had baked. It was dense enough to be registered as equipment. New recipe, she said. How new? First and last attempt. We ate it with soup. Conversation moved carefully around the wedding and stopped nowhere near it. Laurel asked about the fence. I asked about her plants. Owen tried to tell a story about work and knocked his spoon onto the floor. For 40 minutes, we behaved like people learning a language from a phrase book. Afterward, Laurel washed the bowls without asking. I almost told her to leave them, then realized that would make dishwashing symbolic. I dried. When she left, she hugged me with one arm, not warm, not cold, a gesture under construction. December arrived with catalogs, cold rain, and 3 separate emails from Evelyn about Christmas. She planned to host dinner and wanted everyone to set aside personal differences in the spirit of the season. I declined, not because I refused to see Owen and Laurel. I did not trust myself in Evelyn's dining room while she arranged pecans and called humiliation a personal difference. Marjorie and I planned Christmas lunch at my house. 4 people if Owen and Laurel wanted to come. No coalition, no seating chart, no performance. Owen accepted immediately. Laurel waited a day. Thank you for inviting me, she wrote. I'd like to come if you're comfortable. I replied, I am not comfortable yet. You are still welcome. She answered, that's fair. Christmas lunch was awkward, funny, and smaller than the holidays I knew. Marjorie brought a ham too large for 4 people and claimed the butcher had manipulated her. Owen wore Paul's cufflinks. I noticed but did not mention them. Laurel gave me a pair of gardening gloves and a gift certificate to a nursery. She had not mistaken boundaries for distance. She remembered what I did in my yard. I gave her a ceramic planter. We both laughed when she opened it. For the survivors, I said. The fern's death has been exaggerated. It took a position. Owen looked between us. You two have been discussing the fern? Do not get excited, Laurel said. After lunch, Marjorie challenged Owen to cards. Laurel and I cleared the table. Neither of us referred to the last time she had stood in my kitchen after a family meal. At the sink, she said, My mother thinks I betrayed her. For correcting the story? For refusing to keep correcting it into the version she wants. I'm sorry. She says you're making me choose. I have not asked you to. I know. She placed a plate in the drying rack. I used to think every disagreement with you was a contest over Owen. And now? Now I think that made it easier not to look at what I did. Before I could answer, Marjorie shouted from the other room that Owen was cheating. He shouted back that counting cards in gin rummy was called paying attention. Laurel smiled, but her hand stayed braced against the sink. Can I come back tomorrow? She asked. Alone. I looked at her. Not to explain, she said. The phrase frightened both of us. All right, I said. For the first time since the wedding, Laurel asked for a conversation without first deciding what I was supposed to understand. She arrived at 10 the next morning wearing the same gray sweater she had worn on my patio months earlier. I wondered whether that was deliberate. Then I decided clothing could not be allowed to become evidence in this family. Laurel stood on the porch with empty hands. "No bread?" I asked. "I thought about it, but I didn't want to arrive with an object you had to forgive me for. That loaf was nearly load-bearing." "I know." Owen used the rest to stop a table from wobbling. I let her in. The Christmas dishes were stacked beside the sink. I had not put away the ceramic planter box, and it sat on the counter between us with crumpled tissue paper spilling from the top. "Coffee?" I asked. "Yes, please." We did not speak while it brewed. Laurel took her mug to the kitchen table, the same place where she and Owen had stood after the farewell brunch. She chose the chair that faced the window rather than the one beside Owen's old place. I sat across from her. "I owe you an apology," she said. I waited. Not an explanation, not context. I may have context, but I've been using it to keep from saying the simple part. Her fingers tightened around the mug. "I took your seat. I knew it would hurt you, and I did it anyway." The coffee machine clicked behind us. I told myself it was a capacity problem. It was, technically. But there were other answers. Susan could have watched from another room if she chose to stay. My mother could have sat with her. We could have delayed the ceremony and asked the inn again. We could have told Susan the truth and let her decide. Yes. I didn't look very hard because I already knew the answer that would create the least resistance. Me. You. She met my eyes, and part of me liked it. The words did not surprise me. Hearing her volunteer them did. I had spent so long feeling that you were inside every part of our wedding that, when I had a chance to decide you would be outside one part, it felt fair for about 5 seconds. The vows were not just one part. I know. Do you? Yes. Her voice broke. She stopped, swallowed, and continued. I knew before I came to the coatroom. I knew when I saw the chair. I knew when I put the water beside it because I was arranging comfort for someone I planned to humiliate. My mind returned to the bottle on the counter. I'd forgotten it until then. You put the water there? Yes. Why? Because I was trying to make myself believe I was taking care of you. That was painfully familiar. Help offered to soften control. Kindness used as evidence against the person being controlled. I understand that impulse more than I want to, I said. I know. That's part of why I blamed you so easily. We do some of the same things. Do not ruin your apology by comparing us. A startled laugh escaped her. Sorry. Continue. She set the mug down. I'm sorry I put you in that room. I'm sorry I asked Owen to support something I knew was wrong. I'm sorry I thanked you for being gracious afterward. That was cruel. Yes. Her eyes filled, but she did not look away. And I'm sorry I used your apology about overstepping as proof that you deserved what happened. You didn't. The sentence entered quietly. I had imagined hearing it many times. In some versions, I forgave her with equal grace. In others, I told her to leave and enjoyed the clean satisfaction of justice. The real moment was less obedient. Why now? I asked. Because I watched Owen apologize. He told you? Not what he said. I saw him come home with your note. She rubbed one thumb across her wedding ring. He sat at our kitchen table for an hour. Then he told me he had apologized without defending himself. He didn't ask whether it was enough. He didn't ask you to reassure him. And you wanted the same result? No, she considered. Maybe at first. Then I realized I wanted credit for understanding accountability without actually doing it. I leaned back. How does your mother fit into this? She doesn't. She has fit into every other version. I know. That's another thing I'm sorry for. I kept saying I did it because she was panicking. She did pressure me. She did say Susan had to sit beside her. But I was the bride and I decided. Evelyn is responsible for lying afterward. I am responsible for what gave her something to lie about. It was the first time I had heard Laurel call her mother Evelyn. "She isn't speaking to me much," Laurel said, "because you corrected her. Because I told her I won't attend family events where she explains your motives to everyone. I did not ask you to do that." "I know. It's my boundary with my mother, not a gift to you." The sentence was so precise I almost suspected Owen had written it for her. But Owen had never been that precise. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Nothing today. Everyone wants something. I want the possibility that we won't always be like this. That is something." "Yes." She waited. "I want that too," I said. "I don't know what it looks like. Neither do I. I will not go back to being useful enough that no one has to consider me. I will not go back to agreeing to your help and then resenting you for having opinions. Good. And if you overstep, I will tell you directly. I may not like it. I know. If you punish me instead of telling me, I will step away. I understand. No messages through Owen. Agreed. No calling my sister. I would rather negotiate with a hostage taker. That is wise." We both smiled. Then Laurel asked, "Can I ask you something difficult? You have established a theme. Do you think I love him?" I looked at her. "Yes." "Even after what I did?" "Those are not opposites." Her face crumpled. Not dramatically. 1 second she was composed. The next she covered her mouth and cried. I did not move around the table to hold her. That would have been the old reflex, rushing to remove discomfort before it could say anything useful. I pushed the tissue box toward her. She took one. "I thought you believed I was taking him from you," she said. "Sometimes I behaved as though you were." "Do you?" "No. Owen is not something either of us gets to own." She wiped her face. "I do love him. I know. I'm not good at being wrong in front of people. Few people make it a hobby. My mother treats apologies like surrender. Mine treated silence like one." "What did Paul do?" "He went to the garage until everyone calmed down, which meant I had the argument twice." She laughed wetly. "We spoke for another hour, not only about the wedding. She told me what it had felt like when I asked Owen for information she had not yet shared with me. I told her what it had felt like when she called me dependable only when a task needed doing. Neither of us won. At the door, Laurel did not hug me. "Thank you for listening," she said. "Thank you for not asking me to understand." She nodded and left. I watched her walk to her car. Forgiveness did not arrive behind her like sunlight in a commercial. My house did not feel lighter, but the locked door in my mind no longer had someone leaning against the other side pretending it was open. The next months were made of small tests. Laurel asked whether I wanted to help choose a frame for one wedding photograph. I said no, then called back and said I would look if she wanted my opinion rather than agreement. She brought 3 samples. We disagreed. She chose the one I liked least. Nothing collapsed. I invited them to Sunday dinner twice a month instead of every week. Sometimes they came. Sometimes they had other plans. Owen stopped explaining cancellations, as if presenting a defense. When my gutter pulled loose during an ice storm, I called a contractor before I called my son. Owen was offended for 6 minutes, then asked whether the contractor had given me a fair price. I told him I would send the estimate if I wanted advice. He said that sounded healthy and unpleasant. It was both. Evelyn did not apologize. She sent a note in January saying she regretted that confusion surrounding the seating arrangement had damaged the family. I mailed it back with the word confusion underlined. Marjorie called that unnecessary. It was also satisfying, she admitted. Susan and Evelyn began speaking again in spring. I learned this from Susan, who made it clear their reconciliation did not depend on anyone rewriting the wedding. When she asked if I wanted to join them for lunch, I declined. "I like you," I told her. "I do not want to become the third person in your argument." "Reasonable," she said. "Inconvenient, but reasonable." I stopped treating my house as a failed move. I had the back steps repaired, gave away half the furniture I had packed for Hawthorne Commons, and turned the empty second bedroom into a room where I could leave projects unfinished. In May, Marjorie and I took a train west for 2 weeks. I had not traveled without Paul since he died. The first night, I woke when the train curved through darkness and reached for someone who was not there. Grief was still weather. So was joy. We ate breakfast while mountains appeared beyond the windows. Marjorie complained that the eggs had been cooked by rumor. I laughed until coffee came through my nose. Owen asked for my itinerary but did not call every day. When I returned, he picked us up at the station and asked before taking my suitcase. By summer, Laurel sometimes called me without Owen knowing. Once for my tomato sauce recipe. Once because Evelyn had said something hurtful and Laurel wanted advice. "I'm not your mother's interpreter," I told her. "I know. I was hoping you'd insult her creatively. That I can do. We were not close. We were becoming real." The anniversary invitation arrived in August. It was not formal. Owen called while I was watering the hydrangeas. "We're having dinner at home next month," he said. "Just a few people." "What are we celebrating?" "Our first year." I was present for the beginning. He went quiet. "Bad joke," I said. "No, fair joke." "Who's coming?" "You, Marjorie, Evelyn, Susan, and 2 friends. Evelyn and Susan in the same room. They've signed a treaty." "What are the terms?" "Neutral side dishes." I turned off the hose. "Is there going to be a video?" I asked. "No." "Vows?" "No." "Speeches?" "Absolutely not." I could hear Laurel in the background telling him not to promise what Marjorie would do. "You don't have to answer now," he said. "And if the date feels wrong, I understand." The old phrase no longer sounded like a request to disappear. "I'll think about it." "Okay." He did not ask me to decide for his comfort. A week later, I accepted. On the afternoon of the dinner, I took the dark green dress from the back of my closet. I held it against myself in the mirror, then put it back. Some clothes carried too much memory to be asked to make new ones. I chose blue instead. The blue dress had pockets, which already made it superior. I put Paul's pearl earrings into them rather than wearing them. Halfway to Owen's house, I changed my mind at a stoplight and fastened them using the rearview mirror. The driver behind me honked when the light changed. "Marriage has taught you nothing about patience," I told him through the glass. He honked again. Owen and Laurel's townhouse looked different from the last time I had stood outside it with their key in an envelope. Laurel had planted tall grasses beside the steps. The brass numbers had been replaced with black ones, and someone had painted the door a deep green. I arrived 20 minutes early. That was late by my old standards and early by everyone else's. Laurel opened the door wearing an apron over a black dress. Flowers streaked one side of her hair. "You're early," she said. "I can sit in the car." "No, I need an opinion." "Do you want my opinion?" "I just said I did. I'm confirming." She smiled. "Come in." Inside, the house smelled of garlic, rosemary, and something beginning to burn. "Oven," Laurel said. She ran toward the kitchen. I followed and found smoke curling from a pan of bread. Owen stood in front of the open oven waving a dish towel. "I set the timer," he said. "You set the microwave timer," Laurel answered. "I wanted the sound to be local." "You're holding a phone," which was on silent. Their first year had apparently not improved either of them in a kitchen. Laurel rescued the bread. Owen opened a window, then saw me and came around the counter. He wore a white shirt with the sleeves rolled once. Paul's cufflinks flashed at his wrists. "Mom, happy anniversary." He hugged me. The embrace was warm and brief, with none of the old desperation to prove something. "You smell like smoke," I said. "That's the traditional first-year gift. I thought it was paper." "The bread is moving in that direction," Laurel said. On the kitchen windowsill, 8 green plants crowded together. At the far end stood a fern with 3 determined fronds. I pointed. "The dissident lives." "She responded to adversity," Laurel said. "She became mostly soil. Growth is not linear." Owen looked between us. "I feel like I missed a whole relationship." "You were busy finding a plant service," I said. Laurel took off her apron and brushed flour from her hair. The opinion I need is about the salad dressing. It's too sharp. I tasted it from a spoon. It needs honey. I thought so. She handed me the jar without asking me to fix it. I added a little honey, stirred, and passed it back. She tasted it, added more mustard, and nodded. We had developed a method. On the dining room sideboard stood several framed wedding photographs: Laurel with Evelyn before the ceremony, Owen and his groomsmen, Susan embracing Laurel in the foyer, all three women caught in the raw surprise of their reunion. Then I saw the photograph of Owen and me on the stone terrace. He was turned toward me because the photographer had told him to look at his mother. I was smiling toward the lens. Without knowing the circumstances, anyone would have seen tenderness. Knowing them did not make the tenderness false. "We weren't sure whether to put that one out," Owen said behind me. "Why?" It felt dishonest. The photograph? The day. I looked at it again. I was there. Not for all of it. No. Laurel thought we should ask before displaying it. I glanced toward the kitchen, where she was arranging herbs over a roast. "You didn't." She said asking would make the picture a negotiation. She was right. "Is it okay?" I considered the question. "Yes." He released a breath. "That doesn't mean the photograph tells the whole story." "I know. No photograph does." He stood beside me. In the glass, our reflections hovered over the image of our happier-looking selves. "Do you like it?" he asked. "I like your face." "You're not looking at me." "I like the fact that you were looking at me." His eyes moved to the photograph. "I was scared you were going to leave." "I did. I know." The doorbell rang. Marjorie entered carrying a pie in a cardboard box and a bottle of wine beneath one arm. "I was told not to make a speech," she announced. "You were told not to prepare one," Owen said. "I didn't. I brought notes." He took the pie from her. "What kind is it?" "Apple. This says cherry." The bakery made an error. I'm standing by my original answer. Evelyn arrived next. She had cut her hair shorter since Christmas. It softened her face, though her expression remained formal when she saw me. Diane. Evelyn. She held a bouquet wrapped in brown paper. "These are for Laurel," I assumed. She looked toward the sideboard and noticed Susan's photograph. Something passed over her face: grief, pride, perhaps irritation at having an uncontrolled emotion in public. "I'm glad you came," she said to me. "Thank you. I know there has been unpleasantness. That is a broad word." She glanced toward the kitchen, where Laurel and Owen were pretending not to listen. "I hope tonight could be a new beginning," Evelyn said. "I thought it was an anniversary dinner." Her mouth tightened. "Must you make everything difficult?" "No, I have retired from making things easy." Marjorie opened the wine behind us with unnecessary force. Evelyn lowered her voice. "I have lost time with my daughter because of this. Laurel is in the kitchen. You know what I mean?" "I do." "You believe the consequences of what happened belong to me. You walked out." "Yes." "You encouraged Susan to turn against me." "No." "You refused to come to Christmas. I refuse to come to your Christmas." Her eyes sharpened. "Do you intend to punish me forever? I do not intend to have much of a relationship with you at all." The answer startled both of us. I had spent months imagining some grand reckoning with Evelyn. In reality, I did not need her confession. I did not need her to understand me. I only needed to stop submitting applications for fairness to someone who had no position available. "You are Owen's mother-in-law," I said. "I am his mother. We will share rooms occasionally. We can be civil." "Civil? Yes." "What about family? Family is not unlimited access to me." Her face reddened. Laurel appeared in the doorway. "Mom." Evelyn turned. "We're talking. I can hear. I am trying to put the past behind us." "No," Laurel said. "You're trying to make Diane agree that it belongs there." The room went still. Evelyn looked at her daughter as though she had spoken in a stranger's voice. "I came here to celebrate you. Then celebrate us. I cannot say anything anymore without being corrected. You can say almost anything. We may answer." Marjorie poured wine into a glass and handed it to Evelyn. "For courage," she said. Evelyn took it automatically. Susan arrived before the argument could find another floor. She entered carrying a bowl covered with foil and stopped when she saw her sister holding wine like medication. "Am I late?" "No," Laurel said. "Then why does everyone look finished?" She kissed Evelyn's cheek. Evelyn allowed it with rigid dignity. Their treaty was apparently real but lightly armed. The two friends Owen had invited arrived together a few minutes later. I had met Daniel and Priya at the wedding, though they had seen more of it than I had. Neither mentioned that. Daniel brought champagne. Priya brought flowers, which meant Laurel now had enough bouquets to imply either romance or an apology of national importance. Conversation settled. Susan uncovered roasted carrots. Marjorie discovered her pie was, in fact, cherry, and accused the bakery of labeling it accurately to undermine her. Owen opened champagne, and the cork struck the ceiling hard enough to leave a small mark. Laurel stared upward. "First-year souvenir," he said. "You are painting that." "I know someone with experience," he replied, looking at me. "My fence has stripes, artistic texture." We stood around the kitchen island eating cheese and telling stories that did not require anyone to take a side. Daniel asked Owen what had surprised him most about marriage. "That we argue about objects that don't have feelings," Owen said. "The chair," Laurel said. I froze. Then she pointed toward the living room. "He wants that chair beside the window. I want it by the bookshelf." Daniel looked between them. "I'm staying neutral." "Coward," Owen said. The word was light in his mouth, but he glanced at me. I smiled, not because the word had lost its history, because he no longer pretended not to know it. Priya asked Laurel the same question. Laurel thought for a moment. How easy it is to mistake agreement for loyalty. Evelyn studied her wine. And how easy it is to think an apology should control what happens next, Laurel added. No one spoke. Then Susan lifted a carrot from the serving bowl. "These need salt." The room breathed again. I watched Laurel across the island. She had not looked at me while answering. The lesson did not belong to me. That mattered. Before dinner, Owen asked everyone to raise a glass. "You promise no speeches," Laurel said. "This is a toast, different regulatory category. You have 10 words." He counted silently on his fingers. "Thank you for coming. We're grateful you're here." 8, Marjorie said. "Wasteful." We drank. Evelyn kept her glass raised. I would like to say something too. Laurel's shoulders tightened. "Mom." 10 words, Evelyn said. She looked around the kitchen, to fresh starts, forgiveness, and leaving old grievances behind. 9, Marjorie whispered. Evelyn smiled as though she had solved us. A year earlier, I would have let the sentence pass. I would have swallowed the way it recast accountability as grievance and silence as forgiveness. Or I would have fought until the evening became about my reaction. I set down my glass. "I haven't left it behind," I said. "I've learned to carry it differently." Evelyn's smile faded. "This is what I mean," she said. "Some people insist on reopening every wound." "No," Owen said. His voice was quiet. Everyone turned toward him. "Mom didn't reopen it." "You did." Evelyn stared. He continued before Laurel could speak. "We put her in that room, Laurel and I. You lied about her volunteering, but we made the decision. She doesn't owe us a version that feels better." No one applauded, thank God, no one applauded. Daniel looked at his shoes. Priya took his champagne glass before he could spill it. Susan rested one hand on her sister's wrist. Evelyn pulled away. I apologized for the confusion. "There was no confusion," Laurel said. Evelyn looked from her daughter to Owen, then to me. "I did not rescue her. I did not punish her either." "You said 10 words," Marjorie observed. "You've exceeded your limit." Susan laughed first. It was a small, helpless sound. Then Owen did. Laurel covered her face, half horrified and half relieved. Even Evelyn's mouth twitched, though she refused to surrender the full smile. The tension did not vanish. It changed shape into something the room could hold. Laurel checked the roast. Owen carried bowls to the dining room. Susan asked Evelyn whether she wanted water, and Evelyn said yes without making it symbolic. I brought the salad. The table was round, large enough for 8 if everyone tolerated knees. No place cards marked the settings. There were no assigned ranks, no empty memorial chair, no monitor offering a delayed version of the room. Paul's photograph stood on the sideboard where he could see all of us. The fishing hat again. I had given Owen a copy after Christmas. One chair remained open beside Owen. I stopped behind it. He came around the table and rested his hand on the back, but he did not pull it out. "I saved this place for you," he said. The others continued arranging napkins and passing dishes. No one watched us closely enough to turn the moment into a performance. Owen looked at the chair, then at me. "Does this work for you?" The question was simple. That was why it mattered. He was not thanking me for being gracious. He was not telling me where I belonged. He was not asking me to accept less because love made me the safest person to disappoint. He was asking. I looked around the table. Laurel stood on Owen's other side, waiting without anxiety for my answer. Marjorie was trying to steal a roasted potato before anyone sat. Susan had moved her own chair closer to Evelyn's by choice. Evelyn stared down at her folded napkin, still present, still imperfect, no longer in charge of the truth. I thought about Hawthorne Commons, the lost deposit, the holes in my lawn, the rooms I had unpacked. I thought about lonely dinners eaten while my phone lay face down and a folded note waited beneath silver cufflinks. The relationship I had before the wedding was gone. So was the woman who believed love meant making herself convenient enough never to be left. What remained had cost all of us something. It was not smooth. It was not certain. It was real. "Yes," I said. "This place works." Owen pulled out the chair. I sat beside my son because I wanted to, and because, this time, no one had assumed I would accept anything less.